Special Planning Board meeting Monday, January 30th, 2023. I hereby declare this meeting of the Howell Township Planning Board to be open, adequate notice having been given pursuant to the New Jersey Open Public Meeting Act in the following manner. First, on January 19th, 2023, a copy of said notice was mailed to the Asbury Park Press and the Star Ledger. Second, on January 19th, 2023, a copy of said notice was hand-delivered to the clerk of the Township of Howell. Third, on January 19th, 2023, said notice was posted in the office of the Planning Board and on the bulletin board in the Howell Township Municipal Building, 4567 Route 9, Howell Township, New Jersey. Members of the public will have a chance to ask questions and comment on applications once the chairman opens the hearing up to members of the public. If you wish to ask questions or comments on an application, you will need to use the raise your hand feature and we will bring you into the meeting one at a time. You will need to have audio and video capability. You will be sworn in and you will be required to give your name and address. For anyone calling in, you can press *9 to raise or lower your hand and *6 to mute or unmute yourself. This meeting is being videotaped for possible future broadcast on Howell Township TV 77. Thank you.
Okay, roll call.
Mr. Bishop has resigned, so he is not here this evening.
Okay.
Mr. Cristiano?
Present.
Mr. Greenfield?
Here.
Mr. Husser?
Here.
Mr. Seaman?
Here.
Ms. Talente?
Here.
Mr. Tannenhouse?
Here.
Councilman Gager?
Here.
Mr. Kyle?
Here.
Mr. Mercer?
Here.
And Chairman Bavai.
Here.
You have a quorum.
All righty. So let's stand for the Pledge of Allegiance and a moment of silence for our troops serving here and overseas. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic
For which it stands, one nation,
under God, indivisible,
indivisible,
with liberty and justice for all. All righty. All right, so tonight's a special meeting, so we just have one thing on the agenda and we'll get started. And that's case number SP 1100, Monmouth Commerce Center.
And we have Merrill Goncher and Adam Fiella as counsel.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Yeah.
I'll be here, but turn off my video to save the bandwidth for everybody unless I'm needed.
Okay, really quick, I just want to remind the board members, I want to allow the testimony, let them complete their testimony, and then board members will ask their questions afterwards. So get a pen and paper if you want to ask a question, but let's let them complete their testimony first. Okay.
Thank you. Ms. Goncher, who else do you need brought in? I have Adam, I have Justin Taylor. I believe I brought in Steve Catani, but I don't see him. Maybe if you need him, I'll bring him back in.
He was
Anyone
having
else?
some
We
issues.
have
Yeah,
a
our
court
court,
reporter as well.
Okay. And that's it.
that is all at the moment. Yes, thank you.
Perfect. Thank you.
Okay. Good evening. My name is Merrill Goncher. I'm a member of the firm of Sills, Cummis and Gross. And with my partner, Adam Fiella, we are representing Monmouth Commerce Center, the applicant this evening for this continued hearing. You will recall we were before the board and presented testimony in September, again in December, and we were last before the board, I think at your reorganization meeting on January 5th, at which time the matter was simply carried to preserve notice at that time and to find a date. And we would like to thank the board for accommodating us with this request for a special meeting. We know you have rather heavy agendas, a number of matters that are scheduled going forward. And when we complete this evening's testimony, we will still have at least one, possibly two witnesses for direct, likely one, but we may well ask for the board to consider another special hearing unless your schedule has been modified since we were last before you on January 5th, at which time, as I recall, there were rather large applications on each of your upcoming agendas. So if we can please at least keep a moment at the end of the hearing to discuss scheduling issues. As the board may recall, we have presented our civil engineer and our architect. We did bring back both of those witnesses to a second hearing to address open issues that had arisen during the first hearing. And the board also allowed public questions of the architect so that unless the board has additional questions, we have completed our direct, and I believe the public and the board has asked their questions of the architect. Our first witness this evening is, as indicated, Justin Taylor. He is the project's traffic engineer. And we would request, as we had previously with the architect, that when he completes his direct and the board has asked their questions, if time remains, that the public be, that the matter be open to the public, because if we can complete his testimony and the need to have him present tonight, we would appreciate that. It just makes everybody's scheduling easier going forward, the less people whose schedules have to be accommodated. Unless the board has any housekeeping matters for us, we are prepared to have Mr. Taylor sworn.
I just have one, and that is that Councilman Gager and Mr. Mercer have both certified that they've either watched the two videos or read the two transcripts, so they are now eligible to vote as well.
Thank you. And those two, for clarification, those are members of the board who were sworn in commencing
Yes.
with 2023.
Correct.
Thank you.
Okay, Mr. Taylor, do you swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give this board is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Please state and spell your name for the record.
Justin Taylor, Taylor.
Okay. Justin, could you please advise the board with whom you are associated, your position with the company, and some of your educational and professional background?
Sure. I'm a principal here in the firm of Dynamic Traffic. I'm a licensed engineer in the state of New Jersey, as well as several other states. I'm also a certified professional traffic operations engineer by the Institute of Transportation Engineers. I've been practicing traffic engineering and design for a little over 20 years now. And I've testified at hundreds of boards throughout the state of New Jersey, including this board. It's a pleasure to be back in front of Howell.
Okay, the board will accept your credentials.
Thank you.
Just for the record, you continue to hold your licenses and they're in good standing, Justin?
They are.
Thank you. All right. Can you please advise the board and the public, what did you do to prepare for your appearance before the board this evening?
Sure. As part of the traffic engineering part of the project, I have reviewed the ordinance and the master plan of Howell Township. I've been to the site on several occasions. We've also prepared a traffic impact study documenting the traffic impact of the project. And we have prepared and submitted design plans to Monmouth County for intersection improvements that I'll get into a little bit later.
Okay. And could you please, if you will, reorient the board to the site and the area, and given your area of expertise, if you could please emphasize the roadway network that is relevant to the subject property and the application?
Sure. At this point, I am going to share my screen. I'd like to call up A18, which was admitted by Mr. Katani. which is the aerial exhibit map. So give me a second. And let me know when that comes up for everybody.
All right. Justin, again, Steve had introduced this. Is this an exhibit that's been identified previously during the course of the hearings?
Yes, it was marked as A18 by Mr. Catani.
Okay,
Yes, it was marked, Ms. Concha.
thank you. All right, please continue, Mr. Taylor.
Sure, just to reorient everyone, I'm sure Mr. Catani went through it in depth, but from a traffic perspective, the site is located along the south side of Randolph Road at its intersection with Brook Road, Lakewood Allenwood Road to the east, Oak Glen Road to the northeast, and then to our west is Lakewood Farmingdale Road, also known as, I'll probably refer to it through the rest of the hearing, as County Route 547. I will note that 547 is under county jurisdiction. It is classified as an urban major collector roadway with a speed limit of 50 miles an hour. And this then in turn to the north provides connections to Route 95 and the interstate trucking corridor, which is relevant to the warehouse use that we are proposing here. I would also note that Lakewood Allenwood Road / Brook Road is classified as a minor collector under Howell jurisdiction. And that provides access over to other municipalities within Ocean and Monmouth County, Walbrook, Point Pleasant, and those types of municipalities.
Justin, I may have misunderstood. Did you say 95 or 195?
195.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
I can never tell if it's a connection or old age setting in. Okay. All right. So if you can continue, let me ask you this. You referenced preparation of a traffic impact study. And was that, can you give us the name of the study just for reference? And then we can identify it. I believe it's also listed on the items that are on the exhibit list and what comprised the record.
Sure. I think it was marked into evidence as A5, and it's entitled Traffic Impact Study prepared by Dynamic Traffic, dated 12/16/21 and last revised 6/2/22.
Okay,
That is
All right.
correct.
thank you.
So as part of that traffic impact study and as part of analyzing the traffic impact of the proposed project, what we initially do is collect existing traffic data. We need to figure out what the conditions are that are out on the roadway today to figure out how things are operating under those existing conditions, and then to figure out what the impact would be of our proposed project once we surcharge on the traffic associated with the development. So to do that, we conducted traffic counts at numerous intersections in the surrounding area, including Lakewood, Farmingdale, 547 and Randolph, Oak Glen and Randolph Road, Lakewood, Allenwood Road and Oak Glen Road, 547 and Maxim Road, and 547 and 549, which is Herbertsville Road / Old Tavern Road. We conducted these traffic counts during the peak commuting hours to find out the impact of when people will be coming to and from the proposed development. And in order to build—
Can you, Justin, let me just interrupt. You said you did these during the AM and PM peak. Can you explain how you determine what the AM and PM peak is and whether that varies per road?
So essentially what we look at is the peak commuting hours. We look at 7 to 9 in the morning, and we look at 4:30 to 6:30 in the evening. And those hours encompass what we term the commuting hours in the traffic engineering field. And what we find typically is that the peak hour that we're going to analyze falls within that 2-hour window. And so we pick the highest hour within the 2 hours of counts to come up with our peak hour analysis. And that's a great segue. Typically, we would look at all the intersections we counted. We would come up with what we term the network peak, when overall the entire intersection has the most volume traveling through it. And we would use those volumes. However, in order to perform a really conservative analysis for this study, what we looked at is the individual peak of every intersection. And even though they may not directly coincide with each other, we picked that highest hour during the morning and the highest hour during the evening to determine what our volumes would be for our analysis points. We then, because we conducted these in October of 2021, we followed the prescribed methodology for COVID adjustment that the NJDOT set forth. We reviewed these volumes in comparison to historic volumes that we had in the area. And anywhere we found that they were lower, we increased them to account for the potential impact that might have been going on during October of 2021 due to the COVID pandemic. So we built.
Okay, so you're suggesting that you made 2 adjustments to what you counted, both of which would increase the numbers over, possibly increase the numbers over what you actually counted. One based on DOT recommendations if the numbers were lower, and they were lower as a result of less traffic due to COVID. That's one, correct?
That's correct.
And the second one, again, that if there were a number of intersections and you took the highest of all of the intersections and adjusted up to the number?
So what we looked at is we took the peak of each individual intersection and then utilized that volume within the analysis. So normally we might see that the intersection's a little higher at one and a little bit lower at the other, but when you look at an aggregate, the network peak, where it has the most volume traveling through the network, you would use that network peak, say it's 7:15 to 8:15. Instead, what we did here is we looked at the peak hour of each intersection, and they varied slightly between 15 minutes and half an hour difference on some of them. But we took that highest volume for all of them, and we used that in our analysis.
Thank you. Okay, go ahead.
So those background traffic, now we have a model of what's going on out there today. In order to determine what the impact of the project is, we look to the Institute of Transportation Engineers publication Trip Generation, which is a manual that the ITE publishes every several years, documenting trip generation characteristics for hundreds of land uses, so that we as transportation professionals can draw from this regional and updated data to calculate what the trip generation for projects would be. For this specific project, we utilized Land Use Code 150, which is defined as warehousing by the ITE. This is consistent with what the township's current definition of warehousing is as well. We're not talking about a fulfillment center. We're not talking about a distribution center. We're talking about generic big box warehousing. So we utilized the manual and the proposed warehouse size of 940,400 square feet to calculate what the peak hour trip generation would be. Now, this is laid forth in my traffic impact study, but just for the board's edification, what we're talking about is about 136 trips in the morning and 139 trips in the evening. Now, this is a combination of in and out volume. It's also a combination of passenger vehicle and truck trips. We do break out the truck trips because of this type of land use, because we understand that trucks have a different impact to the operation of the roadway network. And we want to make sure that we're fully encompassing that when we do our analysis. So once we have that trip generation, we then distribute it out to the roadway network and the model that we built. And I'll get into this a little bit later. Actually, you know what? Maybe it's a better time to just pop up. I know we've got a 18 up. I'm just going to throw up A17 was marked as the overall site plan rendering, again, introduced by Mr. Catani. And this is the same one that he introduced at a previous hearing. But once we have the trip generation of the project, then we need to route it out into the surrounding roadway network. In this situation with the warehouse development that we're proposing, there's going to be several different distributions we're talking about, because we're going to be drawing employees from the local area and a slightly regional area, but we also have a distribution of trucks to and from the interstate roadway network. As I mentioned, Route 195 is located to the north and intersects with County Route 547 and provides great connectivity to that interstate roadway network. To that end, we've designed the site to orient all of our trucks to and from the west on Randolph Road, which provides a direct connection to County Route 547 and then thusly to Route 195. But we do anticipate, as I said, some of the employees that are going to be coming to and from the site may live in Brick or Southern Wall or points to the east, and they may be coming in from Lakewood Allenwood Road. They may be coming from points south. And so we distribute all those volumes out onto the roadway network. And then we perform what's called capacity analyses. We do no build analyses, as I said, to get what would happen out there without the construction of the project. And then we do build analyses. And anywhere we find that there is impact from the project, what we look to do is potentially mitigate the impact of that project. So one of the things—
Justin, let me just ask you, so to make sure we understand, so you do the actual counts, which give you the existing conditions. That's your foundation, yes?
Yes.
Which you've indicated how you've adjusted to make that a conservative, an accurate but conservative picture of what's happening on the roadway network today. Correct?
That's correct.
And then you use the ITE manual to get the numbers anticipated from the project, and you then apply those numbers to the network. Now, you mentioned a no build and a build. Can you explain what the impact, what those mean and what the impact of those are?
Sure. What we need to find is, again, what the baseline operation of this roadway network would be without the project, and then compare it to what the operation would be with the volumes associated with the project. So we have a no build and we have a build.
And how do you know what year you apply to the no build analysis?
So what we look for is the opening of when we project the potential project from opening.
Okay.
So and we add a background growth rate as we pull from the NJDOT to accommodate that background growth. So give me 1 second, and we project a build year of 2025. And based on the NJDOT information, we grow annually compounded at 2.5% per year to get to the no build operation. Again, that gives us the baseline conditions at the day, or when we anticipate the project to open.
Okay. That's if our project is not built, what would the roads be like just based upon the growth anticipated by NJDOT?
That's correct.
Okay, thank you.
And to build off that a little bit, Meryl, we also take a look at things that have been approved but not yet constructed in the area that would also add traffic to the background roadway network. At the time of preparation of the study, there was one development that has been approved along Randolph Road, another warehousing development, and we incorporated that into our no build model to more accurately portray what the volumes would be.
Okay.
So what we did is we conducted our no build and build analysis. At the intersections that I previously mentioned, we're talking about as we come down Route 547. We looked at Herbertsville Road, we looked at the Park and Maxim Road, we looked at our intersection, and then again we looked at the intersection of Oak Glen and Randolph, Oak Glen and Lakewood Allenwood, and we analyzed the driveways. from an off-site intersection standpoint, what we found was that at and I'm probably no surprise to any of the board members, at 547 and 549 at Herbertsville Road, there are capacity constraints. This is an intersection that the county has been looking at for several years on projected improvements to increase the capacity of the intersection. And we find that as it's operating, when we add traffic to it, there are some increases in delays on the movements that we're adding to. What we've determined is with some signal timing modifications, we can bring those levels of service back and those delays back to mostly no build conditions. And I would note that this has been submitted to the county and they have reviewed it, and I'll get into that a little bit later. But we would propose to them some signal timing modifications at that intersection. Well, when we look at the park at Maxim Road, the same thing. We find some, with some minor signal modifications, just a little tweak of green time to improve the operation. We can maintain good levels of service similar to those in the no build condition. When we get to the intersection of Randolph and 547, what we find is in the no build condition, we have rather large failures or lack of capacity at the intersection, not just for us, but in that no build condition, we're looking at a pretty substantial levels of service F. And that indicates that the existing volume coming out of Randolph Road, as well as with the background growth and the other development, that there's going to be challenges getting out of the intersection. This is something we knew. This is something that came up in the last time this board was listening to an application on this piece of property. And what we've done is design an intersection that's going to not only accommodate the traffic associated with this project, but also improve the operation of what's out there today to really handle the volumes that are currently using the roadway, as well as our traffic. This includes widening of 547. It includes widening of Randolph Road, and it includes the installation of a traffic signal at this location. Again, this has been submitted to the county, and they have taken under review, and I'll touch a little bit later on where we stand with that. But as I said, what we're looking to do is create turning lanes at that intersection to accommodate the traffic to and from Randolph Road. So this will include a right turn lane as you travel northbound along Randolph Road to turn in, or as along 547, excuse me. So you can turn right into Randolph Road. It will include a southbound left turn lane. So as you're coming to and from Route 195 and traveling south, you'll be able to make a left in a dedicated lane. And it includes widening Randolph Road to provide separate left and right turn lanes to accommodate vehicles going in both directions, to give stacking for both of them and allow them to bypass each other. And with that, we can take it from levels of service of F to an overall level of service B at the intersection. So I think, we developed a plan here that's going to, like I said, accommodate the traffic, really improve the operation of that intersection. We then looked at improvements along Randolph Road and along Oak Glen. At the initial inception of the previous application for this, we had meetings with the township, and it was requested that we provide half-width widening along Randolph Road, as well as some improvements along Oak Glen. This plan continues those improvements that are being proposed. So Randolph Road is being widened to provide a consistent half-width of 14 feet along the entire frontage of the property. There will also be dedication of right-of-way to meet the master plan half-width of 30 feet. This will encompass a 12-foot lane and a 2-foot shoulder along our entire frontage of the project. We're also, as I mentioned, looking at improvements along Oak Glen Road. At Oak Glen, it was requested that we develop a left turn lane from Oak Glen Road to Randolph Road. And actually, I can zoom in here on A17 a little bit to give a better view of this. But what we've developed is a left turn lane as you travel north along Oak Glen Road to be able to turn left, as well as a through lane to continue northbound on Oak Glen Road. What that allows us to do is mirror that on the other side, and we are providing a left turn lane and a right turn lane at the intersection of Oak Glen Road and Allenwood Road, Lakewood Allenwood Road. In addition to this widening through here, we were also providing right-of-way dedication to meet the master plan half width of 33 feet. I will note that all of this has also been submitted to Monmouth County for their review. As I mentioned, 547 is under their jurisdiction, as are the other intersections along 547 that are off-site from this project. And we've been through several iterations with the county back and forth. Excuse me, I lost, give me 1 sec. Actually, I guess before I get to that, let's stay on the site plan and talk about the driveways and the on-site circulation that's being proposed currently. So to zoom in a little bit along Randolph Road, we are proposing 3 driveways. Now you'll see the shape and the layout of both the eastern and the western are slightly unique. This design is really a function of some of the concerns that we had heard on the last application for this property. The major concern we were hearing was trucks traveling to the east along Randolph Road and not oriented back to the subject property. Not oriented back to 547. So what we've come up with is a design that fully channelizes these driveways, forcing them all to make a left out of the site and return to 547. It also will be a right turn in only to grab the trucks as they come from 547 eastbound on Randolph Road. Now, I will note that we have about 2,500 feet of frontage along Randolph Road. And the ordinance would allow that one access drive for each 250 feet of frontage. So for this frontage, what we're talking about is there's a permissible number of about 10 driveways. But given the orientation and the layout of the site, it really doesn't make sense. And from a traffic engineering perspective, we really like to minimize the number of conflict points. So we took a hard look at how we could orient and distribute the traffic throughout the site and to the various driveways. And so this is the layout that we've come up with, orienting the trucks to either end. They will allow the access then into the truck courts from both the east and the west side of the building. And then we're looking to concentrate the employees, the passenger vehicles, at this central driveway. The center driveway is proposed to be full movement. And the reason behind that is we don't want to limit the access for employees as they come to and from the site. We want to allow them to travel where they live and be able to get into the facility in the most efficient way possible. So we've provided the full movement driveway for passenger vehicles in the center of the property. And then again, the eastern and western driveways will be right in and left out, and all the trucks will be restricted to those 2 driveways. As part of the previous submission of this, there was a driveway proposed out to Lakewood Allenwood Road, or to Brook Road as it's titled at this southern point here. That driveway has been removed, and that is really a function of the layout of the project and trying to balance safe and efficient access with impervious coverage and conflict points. And we felt that once we removed the building that was in that quadrant of the property, it really wasn't necessary to provide access to Lakewood Allenwood Road. We could still safely and efficiently do it with all access on Randolph Road. So as designed, what we're projecting is levels of service C or better for all 3 of the driveways along Randolph Road. And what that says to me is that we've appropriately numbered the driveways so that we're not going to have queuing issues. We're not going to have backups on the site. We're going to be able to efficiently process the traffic associated with the project, and while minimizing those conflict points along the roadway.
So is it, Justin, is it your testimony as an expert in traffic and traffic engineering that these driveways, as you described them, all 3 of them will function in a safe and efficient manner, allowing safe ingress and egress for trucks and vehicles, passenger vehicles?
Yes, it is. And that dovetails pretty well, Meryl, into the actual design of the roadways. I mean, the access aisles. We worked hand in hand with the civil engineer to ensure that we were going to be able to safely circulate both the large wheelbase tractor trailers and the passenger vehicles throughout the site. We also looked to guidance of the fire official on laying this out. And so we are proposing a minimum width of 30 feet for access aisles everywhere throughout the site. We're proposing about a 70-foot width aisle in the location where the tractor trailers need to be making their parking maneuvers. But everywhere else in the site, it's a minimum of 30 feet. We took that guidance from the Fire Bureau, as well as the ordinance, to allow for efficient circulation throughout the facility.
And does that carry through also to the access from the into the site?
Yes. So everywhere we're providing 2-way aisles, we're providing a minimum of 30 feet. At the location where the eastern and western driveway split into separate left and right turn lanes, the aggregate of each lane is greater than 30 feet.
Okay. All right.
So I think, Meryl, what I would move on to is the next aspect of the project that we looked at is working again with the civil engineer to ensure that we're providing sufficient parking for the project. Now, the ordinance requires 1 parking space per 5,000 square feet for warehouse and 1 parking space per 300 square feet for office. For the project, this equates to a parking requirement overall of 383 parking spaces. We are providing 401 parking spaces, and so we do meet that requirement. So it's my opinion that the site is adequately and appropriately parked to support the demand that would be generated by the project. I would
And in
note,
fact, Justin, so you're indicating that we are merely 18 spaces above the requirement, and the requirement of the ordinance is written as a minimum requirement, correct?
that's correct.
All right.
Yes,
And
it
there is
provides-
no maximum, we're not exceeding any maximum per the ordinance, is that correct?
That's correct. Yep, the ordinance provides a minimum, and in exceeding that, we will provide the sufficient parking. I would note that ITE also conducts parking studies, and based on their parking generation 5th edition for warehousing, the rate that they project is 0.39 spaces per 1,000. Now, they subsume the office into the warehouse component, so you look at it as a total. But for the site, that would say projected demand of approximately 367 spaces. So again, I'm comfortable that what we're providing is sufficient to support the demand of the project.
Okay.
There is now an EV requirement for all development within New Jersey. We will be in complete compliance with that. We'll need 17 spaces that we will distribute in appropriate locations throughout the facility, but we will ensure that the site plan is compliant with that requirement.
Okay.
We also looked at the loading spaces. We are providing 178 loading spaces along the face of the 4 buildings. 4 of those are projected to house compactors. So, excuse me, 8 of those are projected to house compactors. So what we're really looking at is about 170 loading docks for the 4 buildings, as well as 93 trailer parking spaces in the center court between the buildings. And these spaces and these parking spaces for the trailers, as well as the number of loading docks, allows for the efficient use for the warehouses. It allows the separate tenants to dedicate docks to incoming or outgoing goods, allows them to do a dual operation so they can unload or load at the same time, and is really in line with current industry standards for loading dock design and trailer parking storage. So I feel that the layout of this is in good practice with what we see in typical warehouses throughout New Jersey.
Okay. And is it your testimony that the way this has been laid out, both the arrangement of the parking for passenger vehicles as well as for truck parking, taking into account the movements that will be required for trucks to operate at the loading bays? Is this a safe, efficient means of accommodating these movements and these elements of the site?
It is. Yep. I think the ability to primarily separate the operation of the trucks and the employees helps the site. And we've been able to do that by providing the spine road through the middle for passenger vehicles, allowing access to and from the parking fields along the north face and southern faces of the buildings, and then isolating the truck maneuvers to the outside aisles, and then the center between the 2 buildings with the loading docks.
Let's go back to some of the items before we move on to the next topic. I just want to make sure that that I understood the testimony. Randolph Road, there will be a dedication, and the effect of that dedication will bring the width of the road up to the half width recommended in the township's master plan. Is that accurate?
Yes, that's correct.
So currently that road is not at what the master plan recommends for it in terms of width?
That's correct. Yes, there's a right-of-way dedication from the half width to meet the master plan requirement, as well as an actual widening and roadway construction to meet the half width.
Okay. You also talked about improvements at other intersections. So those where we are creating, for example, an additional turning lane, where we're striping for that, we are providing additional capacity, is that the right way to describe it, to the existing condition?
Yes, that's correct. We are adding capacity by providing the widening and restriping of the turn lanes at Oak Glen Road and Lakewood Allenwood Road, at Oak Glen Road and Randolph Road, and then the intersection improvements that I discussed at County Route 547 and Randolph Road.
Okay. Now, with the improvements that you've discussed, you've gone through and you've discussed the various intersections, and all of this information is contained in the traffic report that's part of the record, correct?
Yes, that's correct.
All right. And is it accurate to say that where, obviously in the no build condition, we would not be involved if there was a no build, whatever deterioration there might be in terms of the roadway or intersection operation, that would happen and there would be no mitigation unless a governmental entity stepped in to do so. Is that accurate?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay. And is it accurate to say that where this proposed development, if built in the design year that you've established, that with the improvements that we are proposing, we are mitigating the impacts to the extent that they result in a deterioration in levels of service at those intersections?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay.
I mean, as I
All right.
mentioned, Earl, both the intersections along 547 are all under county jurisdiction. And we have submitted them, as I said, on several occasions, in an ever narrowing comment letters from them. At this point, based on the comment letters that we received in November and December, all of the traffic comments on the operation of the intersections and the capacity analysis, the traffic study, had been addressed to their satisfaction. I would also note that in December, we received a letter from Tom Lombardi at the county saying that they have no further comments regarding the roadway design. So at this point, we just recently resubmitted them in early January, addressing the minor stormwater comments that they had. And we believe that we've addressed those to the satisfaction that we do anticipate conditional approval coming up in their next meeting in February, the DRC. But the only outstanding items we still have with them are the technically are the stormwater comments, and they were minor in nature.
Okay. All right. And so is it accurate to say that that the county has accepted the information contained in the traffic report that you submitted to them in support of the application?
Yes,
All right. And that contains the same the information that is before this board in terms of the counts, in terms of the ITE information upon which you base the traffic generation numbers, and that has been accepted as accurate by the county?
that's correct. The same traffic impact study that the board and its professionals reviewed is the one that the county reviewed and has approved.
Okay. All right. And I think in terms of, I know we have a review letter that we have not gone through. Anything else that from the this board's review letters? You had mentioned the county, but these review letters. Anything else that that you have not covered on the direct, other than those reviews?
No, I don't believe so. We did receive a review letter from CME Associates dated August 29th, 2022, with review to the traffic impact of the project. I can gladly tell the board that we can comply with everything within that letter. There are some minor technical comments that we will gladly address in the site plan. There are some construction drawings that are being requested that we will gladly submit to them as a condition of any approval for this board, as you would with any other construction drawings. But we take no exception to any of the comments within the review letter. I think there was one point of clarification that they asked for, and it's the terminology and utilization of the truck that we use for our truck circulation plans. We label the truck that we use as a 53S, NJ53S, as opposed to a WB67. And the reason we do that, they are essentially the same truck. New Jersey has a requirement that the distance between the kingpin of the trailer and the center of the rear axles has to be 41 feet. So what we have done is modeled that as opposed to the 67, which allows for long haul trucking throughout the Midwest. We're actually allowed a 45-foot distance between the two. So they're still the same tractor. There's still the same 53-foot trailer. They just model the largest legal vehicle that's allowed on the roads in New Jersey.
Okay, well, I'm sure their consultant. Can you just, there was a question with regard to the intersection, or a comment with regard to the intersection of Oak Glen Road and Lakewood Allenwood Brook Road, and some warrant analyses.
Yeah, so I mean, we were requested to look at it. We did provide within the traffic impact study that the intersection under no build conditions does warrant a traffic signal in that location. And I think that per the requirement here, they asked whether the county had any additional comments on it. I can report that the county had no comments on the operation of that intersection.
Other than that, we would, subject to our right to recall, I believe that addresses our direct traffic testimony for this evening.
Okay, Justin, can you just stop sharing so we can get back to seeing everybody? Thank you. Mr. Chairman,
Sure.
I've got a couple questions. One, I saw the November report from the county. I did not see the December one. So could you just supply that to the board secretary after the hearing tonight?
Absolutely.
Can I just clarify? I'm sorry. We sent that over. It's on your list now. We realized when we saw the list today that it was not there.
Okay.
I do have a copy.
Okay.
Yeah,
All right.
that came, generally the reports, I think, are part of the memos that go out from the county. This one came in randomly in terms of the date, but it is
Yeah.
in your file now.
Okay. All right. Thank you for that. Also, I just want to make sure. So, Mr. Taylor, your conclusions and your analysis all rely upon all of the improvements that you discussed that are under the county's jurisdiction?
They do, yes, they do rely upon the improvements that we are proposing along County Route 547.
Okay. Also, I remember in the previous iteration of this project, which involved a larger warehouse, I believe there was testimony that the project just couldn't work in the absence of the new traffic light. Is that still the case in this project, which has been modified, or no?
Yes, given the existing deficiencies that are already at Randolph Road in our no build condition, the traffic signal would be necessary for the operation of the safe operation of this project.
Okay. And the traffic signal, that's the one that would be at County Route 547 and Randolph Road?
That's correct.
All right. Just looking back at the November report from the county, it mentions the required acquisition of a certain amount of property. I think it was 4,396 square feet. Well, I'm sorry, it was more than that. 39,892 square feet. Does that acquisition facilitate the traffic signal, or is that for some other purpose, or for all purposes that's necessary?
So that it goes hand in hand with the traffic signal. In order to accomplish the widening, the lane geometry that I described, we are widening all three approaches, the northbound, the southbound, and the westbound approach to that intersection. And in order to fit those improvements, we need to acquire property from the adjacent corners. And that's detailed in the county improvement plans that were submitted to the county.
Right. Amongst that, or actually, I don't know if it's included in that number or it's separate, but it talks about 4,396 square feet of property that's required to be obtained from Howell Township. What's the status of that?
I can answer that.
Mhm.
Those are conditions to the county approval. And we have had ongoing discussions with other property owners. I don't believe we have had any discussions yet with Howell since this application remains pending. And as to all of them, obviously, the county maintains rights of condemnation, which is an alternative to their, in order to accomplish these improvements that benefit the county.
So when you talk about an approval though, and again, this is the November letter, it could have changed in December. In November, it says, and this is a quote, since the proposed improvements at County Road 547 and Randolph Road cannot be constructed without the acquisition of off-site property rights, we cannot recommend conditional approval until the applicant provides an executed agreement with the affected property owners. So in November, there was no conditional approval. They were waiting for the executed agreements. So is there a conditional approval now, or is the county still?
And I think what Justin said is they have made a submission since November. If you review those memos, there were 2 memos attached to that report, both from engineers, which continue to have open, very few open items in them. In addition to the one that you read, a subsequent submission has been made and will be scheduled. And I can report that I had a subsequent conversation with counsel to the planning board. And in fact was advised, excuse me?
To the county planning board.
I'm sorry, the county planning board, the attorney for the county planning board. And in fact, ongoing discussions or negotiations with regard to that acquisition would satisfy to allow for a conditional approval.
Right. But as we sit here tonight, there's not a conditional approval. You anticipate getting that the next time they meet.
Right. I think what Justin said is they've made a submission that it should be scheduled for the next meeting in February.
Okay.
I think that was
All
his
right.
testimony.
I just wanted to make sure that I understood. But that has to be accomplished in order for those acquisitions have to be accomplished one way or the other for the light to work.
Well, based upon the current design, that is true. I don't know if, and I'll ask Justin, would there be the possibility of a different design? Not the one that we're working on now, but are there alternative designs that could be pursued? Shifting alignments or otherwise, but this is the one that has been proposed and is being pursued now.
Yes, that's correct. I mean, there are other alignments of the roadway that we could utilize.
Well, I was just asking about what you were proposing now. So I think you've answered that.
Okay, but I didn't want it to appear that was the only, if there was a difficulty that they couldn't redesign, but it would be going back literally to the drawing board.
Okay. Just switching gears to the site itself. The ingress and egress for the tractor trailers that you've designed, and I think I heard your testimony reading the reports, that would be exclusively for tractor trailers, right?
Yes.
A tractor trailer if you have a tractor trailer that's ingressing the site at the same time a tractor trailer is egressing the site, would they both be able to make that movement simultaneously?
Yes, I know that was a concern of the board the last time we did it. And so we ensured in this design, this layout, that they could make those maneuvers simultaneously.
Okay. All right, that's all I have for now. Eileen, I don't know if, or anyone, if technologically we have the capability, if someone could email me the December report and I could take a look at it. But tonight's not our last meeting anyway, so I'll look at it one way or the other. But just to conclude on that, you're making good faith efforts to acquire the property, and that's what you had represented to the county planning board, and then it's reflected in the November report. But as of now, whether it be the private property owners or Howell Township, there's been no acquisitions as of yet.
That's correct.
Okay,
We thought it was premature while we were still at the local, rather than acquiring land for an improvement that wouldn't be done if the warehouses aren't approved.
all right. That's all I have for now, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Chair, can I
Okay.
just ask one follow-up question to that?
Sure.
Justin, I could have misunderstood you, but I thought that there was a comment that that the county review letters didn't have any comment on the Oakland Randolph Brook Road intersection. But
Yes.
isn't the comment like right after the things that Ron was talking about, asking that they request copies of the intersection improvements for this road to
So-
determine potential impact to structures? Those drainage comments?
Those are drainage comments. Yes, that's correct.
Okay. And has that been done?
Yes, that was part of the resubmission we sent to the county in the beginning of January.
Okay, so that's relatively recent.
Yes, absolutely, within the last 2 weeks.
All right, thank you.
Okay, any other comments from our professionals? All right, board members, any of you guys have any comments, questions?
Yeah, Mr. Chair, if I may, and Justin,
Please.
this is a question technically for you. But I believe this is the first time we've heard about these 17 electric vehicle spaces. And I'm just wondering, is that going to be in one specific area? Does that pose any additional infrastructure or safety concerns for the building? Because that's quite a few.
So because of the number of parking spaces proposed in the site, we're required to provide 4% of the total in EV, right? So it works out to like 16.2, which we're gonna have to round up to 17. I would envision they're going to be interspersed throughout. We have 4 buildings, right? So you're talking about 4 per building. They usually, what we would do is design it so you have one single tower providing it to 2 spaces. So there'll have to be underground conduit run to these. There's going to have to be a little bit of space dedicated to these. But I don't think there's no safety concerns that go along with them. It's really just running that conduit. And for a commercial development such as this, they're really what they're called make-ready spaces. We're going to start to install them, more people that have electric vehicles. But while it's developed, what the state really wanted was to make sure that the underground infrastructure was put in so that as they needed to bring these online and they needed additional charging stations, that the infrastructure was really there. So I think while we haven't fully laid it out yet, they're going to be sprinkled throughout for the various buildings.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, if I could, I just want to note Russell's on from my office, and I know that Justin had agreed to the comments in our report, but a lot of our comments center around these roadway improvement plans, specifically Randolph and Oak Glen Road. And while I understand that they agreed to comply with all of our items, I think that his information, especially if it's been done and already submitted to the county, should have also been submitted to my office for review.
So Laura, let me clarify a little bit. The plans that we have submitted for Randolph and Oak Glen are the site plans. Within the site plan set, the striping and modifications that we're proposing along Randolph and Oak Glen are within that. Should we be approved, there are going to be detailed roadway construction drawings that have to be prepared. That's not something we would typically do for a planning board application, but subsequent to that. And Russell's on, he and I had a conversation that it's not atypical to do that as a condition of approval, knowing what the 2-dimensional geometry is going to be based on the site plans. So the warrant analysis is contained within the traffic study that was submitted and dated in June, and the site plans show the proposed improvements along the roadway.
Understood.
So I just wanted, does the township board have the information that the county has with regard to those improvements?
They do.
Justin? Okay,
Yes, they do.
thank you.
The plans that were submitted a couple weeks ago back to the county, We have?
No, but the plans that were submitted back to the county are only the plans at 547 and Randolph, not at
Yeah, but
Randolph.
I mean, I get it, but Randolph is still like our, the town is still gonna want to see the plans, whether they have jurisdiction over the intersection. So I think it's a little disingenuous to say that we have everything the county has, because we don't.
That's
So
not,
my recommendation is if you submit something to the county, you should be submitting it to our board as well, because we may see something that impacts us locally that they're not gonna look at. So that would be my recommendation.
I agree, Jen, that's actually an oversight on my part, and I apologize. Knowing that this is not our last hearing, I will make sure that they get to the board and the board professionals tomorrow.
Justin, to be clear, we're talking about stormwater improvements at the intersection where what was changed in the most recent plan?
No, but we were just talking about, yeah, there was modifications to the stormwater infrastructure.
Okay,
But for 547 in Randolph.
okay.
But I have a note,
So-
I'll send them out to everybody tomorrow. And I apologize.
Mr. Chair, I have a question. Actually, it might be for Ron.
Good.
How are we voting on this project when the applicant don't even own the land to finish the project?
Well, we have to vote because they filed an application, so there's no option to vote or not to vote. In certain circumstances, in most circumstances, any decision, if it's positive, would be based on obtaining outside agency approval. However, I think, it appears there's going to be some reckoning because there's a county meeting or decision that's coming up and a decision expected. We don't know exactly what the final determinations are from the private property owners. I don't know that the governing body in Howell Township has been given an opportunity to opine one way or the other as to whether they're interested in providing or selling land. So I think there's more to come on that, but to the extent the county planning board denies the application, which the applicant doesn't think is going to happen, but if they deny the application because, for instance, Howell Township doesn't want to give any land, or the 5 property owners don't want to give private land, and if the county commissioners are not interested in exercising eminent domain, that could impact on the board's decision. But until those things happen, I think we just have to sort of track it as we go, or if those things happen. Yeah.
Thank
Mhm.
It is also, if I may say, I appreciate your council's opinion, but the board, there are outside agency approvals which often have conditions. So if something has been denied, that's one thing, but the fact that outside agency approvals have conditions is not justification for the board's denial, in my opinion, when something is outside of their jurisdiction.
Hey, Paul, I got 2 questions.
Go for it.
Justin, on your map that you put up there, on the eastern and the western sides of the property, is there enough space for tractor trailers to pass through simultaneously in either direction, especially on the eastern side where I believe there's parking for the workers?
So there is the ability, yes, the 30-foot wide drive aisles have been designed to accommodate tractor trailers passing in both directions. It provides a 15-foot lane in each direction. So yes.
Okay, even with the parking on the eastern side?
Yep, absolutely.
And then Ron, I just clarification, I know we've talked about it in the past, but we're talking about Herbertsville Road 547, which is, down quite a distance from the property. My understanding is in evaluating these applications, the planning board's jurisdiction is over ingress and egress, correct?
That's correct.
So I guess my question is, why are we listening to stuff going on Herbertsville Road and 547 when in actuality we can't take that into consideration when voting on
Well,
that?
you can take it into consideration in as much as those improvements or lack of improvements have an impact on how the site's going to function. So you have to look at it through the prism of what do these improvements mean, if anything, to ingress and egress? What does it mean to the ability to get in and out of the site? So, you know, that's the way that you would look at these improvements from our jurisdiction.
Just not like, we can't, hey, there's traffic backup at Herbertsville Road. We can't take that into consideration because that really doesn't deal with ingress egress.
That's correct. So here's what and it's not an interpretation or anything of the law. The courts have been very clear that when a ordinance is adopted, that increases in traffic are contemplated by the governing body. So, you know, more traffic is not a reason to deny. You have to be able to, if you're going to, you know, consider it and use it as a reason to make a decision, it would have to be because that has an impact on the ingress and egress.
Got it. Thanks.
Well, I have
Anybody
a
else?
couple questions.
Okay, go ahead, Councilman.
Justin, I have a couple of questions. I tried to write the numbers down quickly, but you gave a couple of numbers earlier about the amount of entering and exiting trips, both AM and PM. What were they again?
Surely. During the AM peak hour, we anticipate 105 entering and 31 exiting.
Okay.
And then the PM peak hour, it's 39 entering and 100 exiting. And that's
Okay.
that's total volume.
Okay. So when you talk about peak hour, are you referring to a specific time period that these trucks will be coming in and out, or is there over several hours?
So that is what we term the peak hour of the street. And what we find is the greatest impact to the surrounding roadway network typically is when the volumes on the background volumes on the roadway are the highest. That's during those commuting hours. So there is traffic that will be coming to and from the site throughout the day. But we concentrate it into those peak street hours because when the volume on the background is lower, then the impact of the traffic associated with the project is lower. So we study during the morning and the evening peak commuting hours.
So in your extrapolation of all this, have you come up with some hypothetical number of how many trucks, let's say per hour, will be going in and out of here?
So during these peak hours, we project between, in the morning, we would project 19 total truck trips, or 5 in and 14 out. And in the evening, we would project 28 total trips, or 15 in and 13 out.
Per hour?
Per hour.
Per hour. Okay, would you do me a favor and bring up the map of that complex? I just have a quick question.
Absolutely. You want the site plan of the project?
Yes, please.
Yep. Give me 1 second. Screen 3.
And Justin, when you put it up, if you could just reiterate what exhibit it is.
Absolutely. This is A17.
All right, Justin, it's not that my eyes are that good. We know that there's going to be 2 in and outs here. It looks like they're almost identical to me, the way they're designed. Could you, I take it there's going to be a check-in place for these trucks to come in? Would that be correct?
No, we don't we don't contemplate having like a guardhouse or anything like that.
All right, so these trucks would just come in and then go to whatever assigned bay?
That's correct.
Okay, that's all that I had. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman,
Go ahead.
I have a question.
Go ahead.
Mr. Taylor, in your testimony, you had mentioned there were 3 in developing your truck traffic counts. There were 3 different types of warehouses that you had mentioned that the ITE references. And the one you said you picked was the one used for, I think it was retail warehousing, not distribution or whatever. Could you provide some testimony as to, and clarify what that type of warehouse is that you used for your report? And then provide some testimony as to why you chose that one and not the other two.
Sure. The land use code that we used is 150 and is defined as warehousing by the ITE. The ITE in its most recent publication, the 11th edition of Trip Generation, actually has, gosh, half a dozen different truck definitions, right? They're identifying and they're keeping pace with the modernization and the changing dynamic of what warehousing is today. The reason we use 150 is we understand that this is not a parcel hub. This is not a distribution and fulfillment center, right? That's not what's being designed here. So when we drill down to the correct land use from ITE, that 150 is the one that we're supposed to be using because it encompasses general warehousing, big box warehousing. That's what's proposed here. The definition is a warehouse is primarily devoted to the storage of materials, but also may include office and maintenance areas. So that's kind of what we're. Go ahead, sorry.
What does the 150 mean? Is that the section in that particular guidance?
Yes.
Or is that the number of trucks?
No. My apologies. So the Trip Generation Manual breaks things down into individual land use codes. Right? Each one of these different types of warehouses or housing or office or any of those is a specific land use code. So land use code 150 is general warehousing. Land use code 155 is distribution facility. Land use code 210 is.
Which would be, so describe a distribution facility as it relates to this type of property. What would constitute a distribution facility? And why is this not that one?
That's a great question, Mr. Tennerhouse. When you start getting into distribution facilities, it's a much more labor intensive, person intensive type of use. You would have hundreds of more parking spaces because you have people touching those things. And it's really, picture your Amazon warehouses, right? You have things that come in tractor trailers and then they get stored in the warehouse and you need people to individually pick the 3 things that you ordered on Amazon today. This is the wholesale warehousing of goods, right? You have stuff that comes in, you have people that hold things in this. Nike, needs a shoe warehouse and they bring their shoes in, their shoes stay in here. And then when they need to, a certain store needs them, they give them to them. So why I say this is not distribution facility is it's not designed for that. It doesn't have the parking that you would need for the infrastructure. It doesn't have the access that you would probably need for a facility such as that. And so that's why we've used land use code 150, but also why we've designed it in conformance with I think what your ordinance would say is a warehouse.
Okay, does utilizing this section, is this the worst case scenario for the different types of warehouses, or is this the best case scenario from the lowest amount of trucks that could be coming to this facility as it relates to the traffic impact?
That's another great question. Other than that fulfillment center, land use 150 generates the highest trip generation per square foot of the other warehouse uses within the ITE Trip Generation Manual. So knowing that we're not going to be a distribution facility, we've used the highest traffic generator rate to generate our traffic and run our traffic impact.
How does the town know that this won't end up becoming that type of facility? I can't recall if we had some testimony or not. Ms. Gansha, is that something that you could recall? I don't remember that was discussed yet.
In terms of the use, well, it's what we're asking for in your ordinance. You amended the ordinance to differentiate between types to disallow distribution type or pack and pick or pick and pack, whatever some of the others are often called.
Okay.
And in answer to your question, how does the town know that?
I think you answered my question.
Oh.
I think it might be helpful, Ms. Ganscher, to I don't know if this is the right witness, but to have someone go through the definition, because you know, like the definition of warehouse talks about short and long-term storage of bulk materials, whereas distribution doesn't talk about employees or pack and pick or anything of that nature. So I think that might be helpful to the board as well as the members of the public who are watching, to have someone very specifically go through these definitions and explain how you're not one, but you are the other.
I think Mr. Phillips is their planner, and he could probably go through that. And I think that's your next witness, right, Ms. Goncher?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it might just be something to have him go over.
Okay. And then the last thing I have, Miss Beam, this is probably for you and for Laura as well. Do we feel that utilizing data that is 2 years old by now is appropriate for this application?
I was told in the beginning of this application, this is a new application, that the previous application for this site has no bearing on this. Why are we still using what appears to be data?
So, Mr. Tannenhouse, maybe I can hit that and then Jen can give her opinion. As part of this application, we went out and collected brand new traffic counts for the project. At the inception,
what was the dates for that? I'm sorry, because all I heard was the 2021.
So
dates.
so we collected data in October of 2021, right? And we then grew that volume based on background growth rates provided by the NJDOT to a build year of 2025. So at the time of application, the data that we provided you was current. And I think the background growth rate, the COVID adjustment factor, and the utilization of the individual intersection peak hour counts gives you a very conservative model of what we're doing and a realistic picture of what the no build and the build analysis would be.
Okay, thank you. Do our professionals agree?
Yeah, I agree. That's a typical standard that we've been doing for the past few years. So I'm comfortable with that.
Okay.
Justin, is this a 24-hour operation?
It has the potential to be. We don't have tenants yet, but it's my understanding that the zone does allow for 24-hour operation. So
it's just taking your trip numbers, okay, and you know, 24 hours. That's 432 trips a day. That sounds like distribution to me.
So I can
432 trips a day.
Can I ask a question? Can I just ask how you came up with that?
He said 5 in and 13 out, and that was his conservative. So I just times that 18 trips by 24 hours. That's why I asked.
So the volume that's associated with that is not distribution center. It's for general warehousing. We would anticipate total trucks in for the day, 564 trips, 282 trips a day in and 282 out for a warehouse such as this.
Justin, can I just ask, when you did these counts, were they manual counts or did you have like the counters down?
So the traffic counts that we did were done manually. We had people out there on the street doing the counts.
Right. So like, but if you had counters, you would see like the volume of traffic on the road for like a 24-hour period, as opposed to the hours that you had people out there counting, correct?
If I had ATRs down, you would have a 24-hour distribution.
All right. I just wanted to clarify that. Thank you.
Yep.
Yeah, because then, I mean, your trips actually would be higher than mine, because you're saying 230 in, 238 in and 238 out. And that's not even counting just the regular traffic that goes on around there. It's not like that would be the only traffic.
No.
But like I said, I know what you're saying, 238 in. I do a lot of warehousing, 238 trips. So that's a lot in and out. 500 a day. Like I said, to me, that's distribution.
So a distribution facility of this size is gonna generate 4 or 5 times that. right? What we're talking about and what's being proposed here is general warehousing. We're talking about, a project that has the capability and the driveway geometry to accommodate that traffic, as well as the surrounding roadway network that has the ability to accommodate this traffic with some of the improvements that are being proposed as part of the project.
Provided that the county allows you to do those improvements.
That's correct. We will require county approval for the improvement to the intersection of 547 and Randolph. That's correct.
Okay. Anybody else from the board have any questions?
I do. In that road improvement on 547, does that include the bridge? Because that bridge is a 10-ton weight limit.
On 547, it's not. So no, I mean, the improvements that are being proposed on 547 are at the intersection of, right at the intersection. There's
Okay,
no
so
proposed.
right at that intersection heading towards 195, that bridge, the sign's right there. It says it's a 10-ton weight limit on the bridge. How is a tractor trailer, an empty tractor trailer can't get over that?
So I do not believe that the county has any issue with this route for trucks, right? It's their roadway. It's actually part of the New Jersey access network for trucking. So I don't believe that there's any issue, nor has the county raised any issue with the structure being able to accommodate the tractor trailer traffic.
So the sign's there just because?
I'm not aware of the sign on 547 with a 10-ton weight limit.
Turn on to Randolph. It's right there.
On Lakewood Allenwood or in Lakewood Farmingdale? Because there is a weight limit on Lakewood Allenwood.
Nope, on 547. I drove past it today.
Okay. As I said, the roadway is under the jurisdiction of the county, and they have not expressed any issue with any of their structures accommodating the traffic that we're proposing.
Okay.
A tractor trailer that would be turning from Randolph onto 547. Say everything goes well, traffic light goes in, right?
Yep.
Make a right onto 547 with a tractor trailer. How far would the setback be from a vehicle stopped at a traffic light to make that safely without impeding oncoming traffic, or stop traffic, I should say, at a red light?
It's another great question. And it's one of the things that the county takes into account. It's one of the things as a traffic engineer that we look at. We actually utilize simulation software similar to what we provided for you to see the on-site circulation for the trucks. We're also proposing a wide sweeping radius on the northeast corner. So as the truck makes the right, we've given a good provided area for the rear tires to track around that turn. It is offset. Give me 1 second. 1 second, my scale's in my desk.
Mr. Taylor, is that something that would be provided with these plans that you recently submitted to the county?
Yes, it's within the plans that was recently submitted to the county. That's correct.
So we'll be able to opine and make comments on it when we get those plans. Is that a fair statement?
Yes. So from the center line of Randolph Road, the stop bar is set back about 100 feet, right? We're at 20, no, excuse me, about 63 feet. And that has been, as I said, that's designed to accommodate a vehicle staged in that left turn lane coming southbound, and the tractor trailer to make a right-hand turn.
Nick, I don't know about you, but I'm a visual person, so until I see the plans, it's tough for me to follow.
Well, I'm visualizing a whole lot, Brian, so yeah.
All right, but again, just so we're clear, you're talking about the county intersection. That's what you're asking for. Those plans would be submitted as a courtesy to the board, to your consultants, but those plans are not before the board. They're before the county planning board.
Okay. Anybody else on the board have any questions?
Yeah,
Yes.
Mr. Chair, that just made me think of something real quick. With the new driveway layout, do we have a circulation plan showing the truck movements with the revised layouts?
Yes, they were part of the site plan submission that the board has.
You have a sheet? Do we have a sheet reference?
Yeah, give me a sec.
Sheet 101.
Thank you. Yeah, 101 is on site and driveway circulation is 102. Thank you. Oop, I need to expand that out a little bit too. 103 also has truck circulation. My apologies.
Thank you.
And we do have a couple of technical comments as far as curb ragi at intersections, just widening or narrowing them for ease of access, just that they've already agreed to work on with us.
Yes, we take no exception to any of the recommendations provided by your professionals with regards to those.
And I think the board had advised us that they would want to see revisions. So those items that Mr. Taylor has indicated will be incorporated. Rather than doing those piecemeal, those will be incorporated when those sheets are revised.
That's correct.
To accommodate Mr. Schlafer's those recommendations that are to be reflected in plan form.
Okay. Anybody else from the board have any questions?
Yes. Ms. Goncher, I would like to hear from you how your project in our town benefits our town's people.
First of all, sir.
Mr. Chairman,
Thank you.
Go ahead.
that our job as the planning board is to determine whether the application complies with the ordinance. While it may be in everyone's interest to find out how this would benefit the public, it's not something that the law allows us to ask where a use variance is not required. To the extent that they do need relief, their planner will testify to it. And of course, the ingress and egress is something that's within our jurisdiction, but overall, how the use benefits the public is not something that we have the legal ability to pursue.
Okay, so yeah, anybody else from
Mr. Chairman, I have one follow-up
please?
question. I was trying to catch all the details of the signs for the weight limits. Mr. Taylor, just as a matter of just due course in preparing any traffic impact report, do you look at whether or do you determine whether there are weight limits on the roads? I know you said the county didn't seem to object, but that's not the same as, confirming whether one exists or not.
That's correct. I typically drive the area. We look at the routes. We look at designations of truck routes set forth by the NJDOT. All of these, because of this being a 500 series county route, puts it into what's called the New Jersey Access Roadway Network. And it's designed to facilitate the maneuvering of vehicles and large vehicles between facilities and the interstate roadway network, which it does at 195. So based on all that, I didn't see any restriction that would preclude these tractor trailers from utilizing the roadway.
How would you go about confirming that? Like, is there some source that delineates the existence of these weight limits?
So the New Jersey sets forth in 1632 of the New Jersey Administrative Code, they talk about designated travel routes for tractor trailer combinations. And within that, it talks about, as I said, the national network, the New Jersey Access Network, and all other unrestricted roadways within New Jersey.
But I'm saying, is there like a list somewhere? And if you're not on that list, then there's no weight limit?
So in that, it says that all 500 series roadways, except for those set forth in Appendix B of that reference, are designed for tractor trailers. And 547 does not fall within that accepted or exception area of Appendix B.
Okay, if it did, would that impact any of your analysis? If that weight limitation, and I'm not saying how, but would it impact it in some manner?
So if I were to look at it, I would have to look at why there was a weight restriction imposed and what the thought process behind it is. I would also reach out to the county, because it is their roadway, to find out if there's any infrastructure that does not accommodate that. And as I said, in multiple meetings with them and multiple iterations of this project, they've not raised any type of issue. So those are the steps. I would start here with 1632, and then I would go to the jurisdictional agency of the roadway, and none of those have raised red flags for this type of project.
And again, I'm just trying to focus on what this board would be looking at. If in fact those weight limits were accurate, as board member Taliente was expressing, would there be an impact on ingress and egress, do you suspect?
No, I don't believe so.
So that access drive that you have devoted to tractor trailers, they could still get there?
That's correct.
Okay. All right. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
All right, so any other board members? Any
Yeah, I just have a
questions?
quick one, Paul.
Go ahead.
This might have been answered, but in turning into the complex, can trucks make a left-hand turn in or only a right-hand turn in?
Only the driveways are designed for a right turn in only,
Okay,
because we are orienting all the trucks to the county roadway network and the signal that we're proposing.
okay, thank you.
Okay.
So you, just real quick, you have signs up on that middle entrance saying no truck traffic? entering?
Yes. Yep, there will be signs there. There was also some suggestions by your professionals for additional signage interior to the site to make it abundantly clear that the tractor trailers should not be using the center aisle.
Okay. Anybody else?
Yeah. Ron, I asked that question about the townspeople. Can I ask that same question about the town? How does this project benefit the town?
Yeah, it's not, and it's just not the way that the law permits us to proceed. There was an ordinance that was adopted that permitted it. The law looks at that as presumably the governing body felt at that time it would benefit the town. Although zoning has changed, this gets, they have vested under the time of application rule.
Thank you.
Okay. Anybody else?
It's just not trying to beat a dead horse here.
No, it's okay.
So I don't even know if this is possible, Justin. I don't know if you have this answer, but are tractor trailers allowed on Lakewood Allenwood Road?
On Lakewood Allenwood, I don't know if they're specifically prohibited, but on Lakewood Allenwood, there are weight restrictions. There are several bridges as you travel east from Oak Glen that have weight restrictions on them.
Or all right, let's just use Oak Glen for instance then. I guess my question is, what if a tractor trailer makes a right onto Randolph and needs to make a left into the complex and is kind of just stuck there? You know, is that a possibility where tractor trailers could be coming, I guess, westbound and just they need to make a left into this proposed facility and they can't? Then what?
So given the weight restrictions on Lakewood Allenwood,
Or Oak Glen, let's say.
we would not envision tractor trailers taking the route of Oak Glen when you can come down to the new signal and make the left in that we're proposing on Randolph. So the facility has been completely designed and will be the patrons and the operators and the tenants will be educated, but the whole facility has been designed around the fact that the trucks are oriented to and from 547. That's why we have the driveways. We heard the concern the last time of public, just of this fear of trucks traveling to the east into the residential areas over there. So we've taken great lengths to design the driveways to preclude that. When you're trucking, when you're talking about how you're going to get to and from, a lot of people are following their GPSs. They're following specifically as truck drivers, trucking GPS routes. And this will orient them down 547 to Randolph Road and then in the right turn into the facility.
Mr. Taylor, it's Brian again here. Is there a service that makes sure that the GPS maps and so forth are updated appropriately to make sure that that stuff's there, or is it just inherently already in there because of those weight restrictions on those bridges?
So part of that is, yes, it goes in there because of the weight restrictions on those bridges. Part of it becomes, you can honestly reach out to Google and to Waze and to those companies. We've done it when working for municipalities in looking to close roads, right? And you can change the routes. And what'll happen is somebody in those traffic routing companies will do a little bit of background research. So you can't just arbitrarily change this, but they'll do some background research and then potentially change the route to preclude the travel along those roadways.
And Mr. Cuchero.
Yes.
Is that something in the purview of this board?
What specifically are you referring to?
Is it making the requests to these various agencies? Because I get where Mr. Husser is saying, you know, a new truck driver comes in from the area. I know we're going to try to educate people, but let's be realistic. The truck driver is going to go where they want to go. And if there's a little bit of backup on 547, you know, they're going to make the first left that they can make that their GPS says approximately how they can get there. And that means coming down Oak Glen Road, which then puts them in a precarious situation because they go over a bridge and make a right-hand turn onto a Randolph Road, and now they're stuck. They can't make a left-hand turn. So now they're jumping curbs to come into the site.
Well, I think what's
or
relevant,
they're coming from Lakewood in the other way. So I mean,
I think what's relevant here is one, to hear from Mr. Taylor as to whether he feels it's relevant or not, and why or why not, and then what impact that would have on any of his conclusions that are in his report. So I would turn it over to Mr. Taylor to address that.
Okay.
What is the question?
Mr. Cuchero, could you help me tailor that
So
question?
I think the question that Mr. Tannenhouse has is that there's a variety of ways that vehicles and tractor trailers may get to the site, and it's not beyond the reasonable probability that some tractor trailer drivers not familiar with the area may rely upon GPS, and it may take them through a different route to get there, one that may have the weight restrictions, not the ones that Mr. Taylor talked about, not being in the appendix, but the ones that he said did exist. So my question in terms of my recommendation in terms of how to respond to that is, one, is that something that is typically analyzed at all when you're putting a traffic report together, and why not? And whether that would have any impact on the conclusions that Mr. Taylor came to.
So the routing of vehicles to the site is something we absolutely analyze as part of the traffic impact study. It's one of the things we want to look at to ensure that is safe and efficient access to the site. As I've said, we have oriented all the traffic to and from 547 in order to keep the large vehicles away from the weight restricted bridges and away from the residential nature along Oak Glen and Randolph Road. I can tell you if it's that big of a concern to the board, I have in other municipalities worked with the municipality to prohibit trucks on certain routes. There is a procedure you can do through the NJDOT to designate roadways, no trucks. It's an evaluation that you would have to submit to the NJDOT, and they make a determination whether it's a valid or not. But if it would make the board feel more comfortable, we can agree to undergo that procedure to apply to the DOT for these restrictions along the roadways.
So, Mr. Taylor, in addition to that, just more specifically to one of the questions that Mr. Tannenhouse had, is it standard for any traffic engineer to understand how a GPS might route you to get to a location versus, you know, the efforts that the applicant will take to create the route that is being presented?
I can tell you when we do distribution modeling, we do look at routing softwares. It's one of the things we look at to try and find population centers. Where are the employees for this facility going to come from? So we look at the surrounding area, we look at the population centers that are around there, and we look at GPS routings to the facility. I don't absolutely always go through the truck routings because it's a little more difficult to figure out where they're going to go.
And then
it is something we look at.
Even if GPS were to take certain drivers, you know, different routes that may not be as efficient, and in some cases, you know, lead them towards roads they may not be able to access, is that something that would have changed your analysis or altered any of your conclusions?
So I don't think so. I think what we have designed is to orient the vehicles correctly for where they're coming to and from. You know, I mean, we need to design to the fact that drivers are going to follow the rules or follow the laws and assume that that is going to happen, right? We design for the prudent drivers. And so I think we've done a great job in laying out the site to keep the vehicles away from Oak Glen and away from the residents on that side of the development and orient them back towards 547.
So I think, Mr. Tannenhouse, what you can do is understanding what this planning board's role is and what its focus and jurisdiction is, you know, apply whatever weight you think is appropriate to the answer to the question that you received from Mr. Taylor. And, you know, it's at some point, you know, our traffic engineer, if more information is not necessary, you know, can comment. Otherwise, I think there's a couple things that have happened tonight that our traffic engineer is going to want to confirm or maybe speak to Mr. Taylor about.
Fantastic. Thank you. Appreciate it.
Yeah, and I did want to just comment really quickly. There are certain GPSs that are truck based, which have different things as far as putting in the length of the truck, how heavy they are, and will help guide a truck through roads that are permitted for them. Generally.
I agree. I mean, but they're not infallible. I agree. I will provide testimony. You know, I'm an avid RVer, and I have such a GPS specific for RVs. And I could tell you that sometimes, even though it has the weight and the height of my
Mr. Tannenhouse, I just want to bust in.
on
You're not,
roads.
you're not
Don't worry.
providing any testimony.
I'm sorry, not testimony. Apologize. I'll just tell you my experience with those specific GPS systems specific for a vehicle type aren't always right. Okay, that's it.
Okay. So
Thank you for the clarification.
anybody else? Okay, so we're gonna take a quick five.
Oh, okay. I just have a few questions
Go ahead.
on redirect, but they can certainly await a break.
Okay, yeah, we're gonna take a quick 5 minutes.
Yeah.
And then we'll be back.
The board will now take a 5-minute recess. They'll be back at 8:58. Planning board will now reconvene.
Okay. All right, everybody's back. Okay.
Are we back on?
Yes, we are.
All right. Since I'm going to wait and see, because as I understand it, I think what I just heard is that traffic, well, we're going to, I guess, open it up for questions on direct, but it sounded like, and you can clarify for me, that you anticipate that there will be additional traffic testimony, since I think I heard someone say that your consultants will be looking at some additional issues. Is that accurate?
Well, I think, and I think it was my statement, what I was
Sorry, you
anticipating
moved
is,
on the screen on my checkerboards. I had to find you. Apologize.
sure. I was anticipating that the questions that we were asking that Mr. Taylor was answering, we may have some additional response from our expert, not necessarily Mr. Taylor. I mean, certainly it's up to you, but that's what I was more referring to.
All right, then, you know what, let me ask one additional, if I may, that's prompted by some of your questions. I'm not sure, but I think the question I was hearing, and either council or we lost Mr. Tannenhouse for the moment, or at least on the screen.
He's
Justin,
here.
okay, Justin, when you do your traffic study, and when you design a site with specific design to direct traffic in a certain way, do you incorporate into your analysis or an assumption that people will disregard statutes or signage or otherwise, either by design or otherwise, not comply with safety laws or signage?
No, we anticipate and we expect that the drivers, the motoring public, are going to follow the rules and the laws of the road. So we take into account the directional signage, the restrictive signage, and the restrictive geometry when we were laying this out. We assume that people are going to follow the laws.
All right, so if you place curbing and direct driveways so that people can only go make a left exiting the site, do you do an analysis assuming people will drive over the curb to go right?
No, we do not.
Okay, and is this the only industrial or truck related use on Randolph Road?
No, it is not. No, there's an industrial use across the way. There was also the 41 Randolph job that I had referenced earlier that was approved by the township several years ago.
And to your knowledge, and I don't know if you know the answer, are those trucks directed by driveway design in one direction or another exiting their sites?
No, they are not. I don't know about the signage, but the geometry of the driveways are not designed to preclude a left or a right turn.
So those, to your knowledge, are full movement. There are other driveways along Randolph Road that would allow trucks comparable to what you're discussing to go in either direction on Randolph Road.
Yes, that's correct.
Okay. And would the concerns that are being raised with regard to GPSs and trucks turning onto roads where they not supposed to go, is there anything unique about the trucks that might be coming to the subject site that are different or distinct from trucks that are currently or will be coming or going to those other industrial uses along Randolph Road?
No, I don't believe so.
Okay. Again, you've heard questions raised about truck drivers making mistakes or not following direction or getting stuck somewhere. Do you view those as unlikely or substantial enough for you to reconsider your testimony previously?
No, I do not.
Okay. And is it your testimony, even with the unlikely circumstance that have been raised, does your testimony remain that the driveways and as designed will function in a safe and efficient way for the project as anticipated and designed?
Yes, my professional opinion remains the same, that they have been designed to safely and efficiently accommodate the traffic that we propose for the site.
Okay. And some of these issues about maybe people trying to drive over the curb to go right coming out or coming from places that weren't anticipated, were any of those what I'll characterize as unlikely events, and that's my characterization, were any of those raised in any of the review letters that you've received as concerns from, for example, the county?
No, they were not.
And any of the review letters you received from the board's consultants?
Not that I'm aware of, no.
That's what I have for direct, subject to our right to recall.
Can I just ask a couple questions?
Sure.
Justin, the industrial use across the street, how long has it been there?
A long while. I don't know exactly when it went in, but a while.
So equating the geometry of a driveway to a use that's been there for a long while to something that's being proposed in 2023 may or may not be apples to apples, correct?
I think the question was more the type of vehicles that come to and from.
I understand what the question was. I'm asking you a different question.
So
comparing an industrial use that's been there for quite a while to
I think he's trying to answer your question.
Respectfully, Meryl, I didn't interrupt you when you were asking the question, so
guys,
I would appreciate being able to
everybody,
ask the question.
Everybody hold on. Jen, why don't you ask your question again?
So my question is that comparing the geometry of a driveway of an industrial use that has been on Randolph Road for quite some time to a use that's being proposed in 2023, perhaps may not be apples to apples, correct or not?
I think in the context of the question, we're talking about truck maneuvers. We're talking about where vehicles are coming to and from, and I think it is an accurate comparison.
Okay, I would respectfully disagree, but we're going to just agree to disagree on that. And 41 Randolph Road, what's the size of that project?
Give me a sec. About 130,000 square feet.
And what's the size of this project?
940,000.
Great, thanks. That's all I have.
Justin, if I can just follow up. When you're talking about the trucks come in and out of the site one at a time, is that correct?
Yes.
And so the turning movement are on a per truck basis?
Yes.
So the geometry that we're speaking about with regard to 40, that is still under construction, is it not?
I believe so, yes.
So that was approved within the last few years?
Yes.
Okay, so that the size of the building might have something to do with the number of trucks, but does it have anything to do with the direction that each truck might be going? where they're going to or coming from?
No, it does not.
Thank you. That's what I have. Sorry.
Okay, that's all you have?
I'm
Okay.
sorry. I didn't know
Oh,
you
no,
were
no, it's
waiting
okay.
for me to.
No,
I just stopped talking. I'm sorry.
It's okay. Okay, does anybody on the board have any questions? Or we good right now? Okay. We're gonna open it up to the public.
And Mr.
Do you
Chairman,
wanna,
just
that's what I was
just
just
to
gonna ask.
reiterate that
Thank you.
there's going to be a portion at the end that's for testimony, and everyone will be able to comment on what they think about the application. Right now, this is for questions to the applicant's engineer or the board's professionals that have offered testimony tonight. So it's questions, not comments.
Thank you.
Mr. Cuchero, if I could just ask a quick question. I
Yes.
would love to hear from the public, but are we technically done with all of this section, not necessarily the applicant's witness testimony, but the section of traffic, because we're going to be asking our professionals to weigh in on some additional testimony as well as it relates to this, and it may be beneficial for the public to hear what our professionals say so they can further tailor their questions accordingly.
It's up to the board chairman, but our professional may also benefit from hearing the questions and answers that the public has as well.
Fair enough. Thank you.
Okay. So right now we're gonna open it up to the public, and like Mr. Cuchero explained, it's just for questions to the professional, not comments. That's gonna be when this is all said and done. Right now, it's just for questions to the applicant's professionals or even our professionals, correct, Ron?
That's correct.
Okay. Okay,
You need me to read the statement, Paul?
please.
Okay. Anyone in the public?
Eileen, just before you do that, where
Sure.
the one part of your statement that we're not going to do is swear in the
Okay.
residents because they're not providing testimony.
Perfect, thank you.
Okay.
Okay, at this time, the chairman has opened the hearing up for members of the public to ask questions only of the applicant's witnesses or the township's professionals. If you use the raise your hand feature, we will bring you into the meeting one at a time. And you will have to have audio. I'm not sure if Ron, you need to swear them in.
No, it's just questions. So
okay.
no one needs to be sworn in. You're not providing testimony. So the video is not even required under the rules.
Okay. And anyone that's calling in, you can press *9 to raise or lower your hand and *6 to mute or unmute yourself. And the first person I have is Dave Albertson.
Okay, Mr. Albertson, we're just going to need you to state and spell your name and give us your address, and then you can begin asking your questions.
Okay, thank you. Name is David Albertson, D-A-V-I-D, last name Albertson, A-L-B-E-R-T-S-O-N. I live at 28 Nate Lane in Howell.
Okay, go ahead, sir.
Fantastic. Thank you everyone for your time and allow me to present these questions. This goes to Mr. Taylor, if you don't mind, just for clarification purposes. We are anticipating 275 trucks per day if we are operating at a normal kind of extended business hours, less than a 24-hour period, correct?
Yes, the number is actually 282, but that's for a potential 24-hour operation, 282 trucks per day.
And is that also including potentially the 401 parking spaces for employees and staff and visitors?
So that takes into account, that's the truck traffic associated with the project.
Okay, so how many dedicated parking spaces, whether for staff, employees, and retail? I missed that.
There's no retail.
Okay.
But for staff and employees, there are 401 parking spaces.
Okay, so that's potentially 401 additional vehicles on a daily basis. Okay, so that would be 1,950 trucks per week, potentially almost 8,000 tractor trailers per month.
I honestly haven't done the math over a month.
Okay, I'm just going by what was presented. Okay, I know we're talking about two more quick questions. I know we're talking about a lot of the traffic coming off of the 547. There's a follow-up to the bypass of where the bridge is. At some point on the first initial meeting that we had, there was a sign that said maximum of 10 tons. What is the weight of the average tractor trailer of this 547 we're anticipating, 537, excuse me, that we're anticipating? Do we know that?
I mean, I don't have the gross vehicle weight. I can readily handy for you. I apologize.
Okay, I think that would be the best interest for the community and the board. My second question is, since we'll circle back to the weight, there are 3 those bypass bridges that are on the Lakewood Allenwood roadway. 2 of them are 10-ton minimums, and the other one is a 15-ton maximum. Excuse me, I'm saying minimum. 2 10-ton maximums and 1 15-ton maximum.
That's correct.
So that would also probably be something of concern for the community, that even if someone was to accidentally make a wrong turn, I would think that the percentages, I'm not a gambling man, that small percentage will probably be impeded if someone makes a wrong turn over 8,000 trucks on any given month.
So the design of the driveway has been laid out to fully channelize, prohibiting the right turn out and forcing trucks to make a left out of the site purely for that reason. We have designed it to orient everyone to 547, and it will be signed. We have, if the township should so desire, we have no problem granting Title 39 to make it an enforceable maneuver. And the reason they've been laid out this way is to push the trucks to the brand new intersection that will be constructed and to the roadway New Jersey access network.
Right, thank you, sir. And then that would also include the Oakland Road bypass bridge that is there, that was at one point a maximum of 10 ton.
Again, we're orienting everyone towards 547 and the county roadway network.
Okay, fair enough. So with that, I am not an engineer, but I did have the opportunity to take out my tape measure one afternoon, knowing we were going to have this meeting. What is the width of a standard 537 tractor trailer? Do you know what that is, Mr. Taylor?
537. I don't know what a 537 tractor trailer is.
All right, so what's the maximum of give me the largest size tractor trailer that would potentially be any one of these bays that can accommodate? What's the size and width?
You're talking about a 53-foot trailer.
Okay, and then that's the length. What about the width?
The average width is about 8 feet.
8 feet. So the bypass bridges that we're referring to, the maximum space between from end to end that I measured was 20 feet, 0.38 centimeters.
So can you tell me which bridge you're referring to?
So the 3 that I'm referring to, first one would be the one on Oakland. Okay, that one was 22.83. The 3 that are on Lakewood Allenwood Road, the first one was 21.70. That was the closest one, closest to Oakland. The other 2 were 22.76, and the last one was 23.77.
Yep.
So if we're taking, yeah, thank you. So if we're taking 8.5 and we're multiplying that by 2, obviously that's almost 17 feet wide. I think that would be cutting it extremely close for impediment for any accidents that would happen potentially on this roadway, that if 2 vehicles are going the minimum of a speed limit.
Excuse me, is there a question? I thought this was questions. This is unsworn testimony.
But the question is, what are we doing to prevent an accident happening? We can't widen the bridges, so do we take any of those actions into consideration? That's the question.
Thank you, and it's a great question. And we absolutely took into account by designing the driveways to orient the trucks away from Lakewood Allenwood Road. We're pushing the trucks to County Route 547, so the bridge widths along Lakewood Allenwood Road don't really come into any bearing of this, because we're moving the tractor trailers to the roadway network of the county on 547.
Right, thank you, Mr. Taylor. But if there was an accident there, we don't, it's pretty close. I think we would agree, right? We have two vehicles that are trying to impede 21 feet of space, and tractor trailers are potentially 18 feet wide collectively going side by side. That's a concern. So, and so I have one last question, and I'll let everyone else. Ms. Gunter, you asked Mr. Taylor on one of the questions about the current businesses, and Mr. Taylor was able to confirm that these businesses operate with some of these tractor trailers, and some have been impeded that the cutways aren't designed to compare to what you guys are designing. But Mr. Gasser asked a question earlier that I thought was really important. He asked the question of, when tractor trailers are coming in and out, no one's checking in, right? There's no checkpoint, right? Mr. Taylor, you said there's no one's checking in.
No, there's no gatehouse design.
There's no gatehouse. Thank you. But then I just heard Mrs. Gontra just say that they're going to know when to turn right and left, because there's the question is if they were going to be able to turn in and out from Mr. Hauser's question. So who's going to manage that when people could make the right or left-hand turn, appropriately?
So the driveways are designed with a full channelization to make the left turn out of the facility. It's going to be signed. There's going to be pavement striping, all with left turn only signs. And so it's fully designed to force these vehicles to make that left out of the site.
Okay.
As I said, further than that, we don't mind granting Title 39, which would allow the police force to enforce those regulations and ticket. But the design has been very in-depthly thought out on how to channelize these vehicles into orienting them towards 547.
Right. But if the trucks are too heavy, the bridge will be compromised. If they're too wide, they'll be compromised. And then if there's an accident,
Question?
Yeah.
I appreciate that.
Please let the townsperson speak.
Thank you.
Yeah, if they would, this is questions,
It's question-
not sworn
yeah,
testimony.
questions,
If they're
not
going to
testimony.
testify, they need to be sworn. That's all
Well,
I'm
first of
saying.
all, the applicant's counsel is allowed to object anytime she feels that a question is not a question. I think the chairman was in the middle of making a finding on it.
Yeah, no,
And
I agree. It's questions only right now. She's not incorrect.
And I think Mr. Albertson was moving on also.
Oh, I appreciate the time. I digress. Thank you.
Okay.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next person is Paige Hackett.
Okay, we just need you to state and spell your name and give us your address.
Hi, my name is Paige Hackett. Paige, Paige, Hackett, Hackett. My address is 578 Newton's Corner Road.
Okay, go ahead.
My questions are, what are the exact dates of your October 2021 study?
The traffic counts were conducted October 28th, 2021.
So all of those were all done on the same day? All those
Yes.
intersections?
Yes.
Okay. And my other questions are, did you account for school traffic, which does not occur during those peak rush hours that you mentioned? Randolph Road is a highly traveled road by school buses. It's a main source of traffic from the half of the town to Howell Middle School South that go that way.
So during the morning peak hour, we tend to find that the school peaks overlap with the peak commuting hour. You have a lot of schools starting in between that 7 and 9, whether you're a middle school, high school, elementary school. So it is within the analysis of that time period. In the afternoon, we find that the actual background traffic, even though there might be some increase in school traffic, is actually typically lower than the peak commuting hour of the general motoring public, which is why we utilize the 4:30 to 6:30 peak hour.
even though traffic is lower, it is considerably different though, with school buses and tractor trailers now being combined at the same time. Wouldn't you agree?
I think the operation of the intersections that we're studying is actually going to be less during the school peak hour than it is during the peak commuting hour. I think the interaction between a school bus and the heavy vehicles doesn't change the capacity analysis that we reviewed for the project.
Okay. I'm sorry, just to return to my previous question, I just checked the calendar, and October 28th, was that a Thursday or a Friday?
It's a Thursday, I believe.
October, I am on my phone, so I have to.
The Friday. Of 2022 or 2021, Justin?
2021.
Oh, so then it would be Thursday, yeah.
Okay. My last question is your testimony that the traffic on Maxim Southern at the park, that's Soldier Memorial Park,
Yes,
and you're saying that would be fixed with light timing?
that's correct. There was a minor timing modification that would be able to help the existing operation of the signal.
And did you study that during sporting events? Because that is a huge soccer field area, softball field area. And I've been at that intersection during tournaments and sporting events. And I don't think that's something that would be fixed with light timing.
So what we were looking to do was analyze the impact of the project, right, at this off-site intersection along the county route. And what we're trying to encompass is those peak commuting hours to see what kind of impact the project's going to have. So during that time, what we found was minor signal timing modifications were going to help the operation of it.
But you only studied it during peak hours, not during an average sporting event. You know, you're going to add all these tractor trailers to the existing traffic, correct?
Yes, we are adding the traffic associated with the project to the background growth, the background traffic volumes.
Which is already excessive.
Well, I think the mitigation that we showed and that we've proposed to the county will accommodate any impact of the proposed project.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
I looked like hell. Hold on, I think I'm still on.
Next, we have Anne Marie Scottson.
Can you just let me know when she gets in?
I put her in. I don't know where there she is.
Okay, Ms. Scottson, we just need you to state and spell your name and give us your address.
Hi, Anne Marie Scottson, ANNMARIE, Scottson, SCOTTSON, 73 Howell Court. So several of my questions were already asked, but I'm going to kind of push one a little bit further. We're talking well over 325 homes. As a realtor, I need to know this. 325 homes within the radius of where the proposed distribution center is going to be. In light of the, and also me previously mentioned about Soldier Memorial, where you have several hundred people coming in and out on a fairly regular basis during peak sports and township events. My first question is, how has, because this study was done in 2021, has anybody determined whether we are going to do a second traffic study in light of post-pandemic traffic patterns? I drive these roads on a fairly regular basis, and I can tell you the traffic is definitely not fun most of the time. My second question is about the noise ordinances. Will the noise ordinances be impacted because we have the noise ordinances between 10 p.m. and 8 a.m., or I'm sorry, 6 a.m. for the township? How will the trucks abide by that? And thirdly, how will this affect the residents of Howell? Because it's going to.
So the only one of those questions I'm the right witness or qualified to answer is potentially the traffic counts. And one of the reasons we do traffic counts and then we rely on NJDOT growth factors and COVID adjustment factors for that matter, is so that we can give an accurate and conservative approach to the analysis. As I stated, we conducted the traffic counts. We followed the methodology that NJDOT was requiring during the pandemic to grow volumes to ensure that we were having the appropriate numbers. And then we've added background traffic growth for just average growth in the area. So I think the numbers that we have used in our study are accurate and even conservative for the analysis that we've conducted.
Did that take into account the 36 new homes being built on Arnold?
No, not specifically, but the 2.5% growth rate encompasses the background growth in the area. And that's one of the reasons we use that. And that's why the DOT publishes those rates.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay,
Is that
thank
all you have? Thank you.
That's all I have for it. Pretty much every other question was answered, and more of my comments would be more of testimony rather than question.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next, I have Pat Heaney.
Yeah, we'll just need you to state and spell your name and give us your address.
You're muted.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
Oh, great. Thank you very much. My name is Pat Heaney, P-A-T-H-E-A-N-E-Y, 56 Vienna Road. My question is regarding the off-site road improvements. You've spoken about this new intersection and some road widening. And my question is that I'm assuming there will be some stormwater, some impervious surfaces there. Sorry, my video was off. I realize that. There'll be additional impervious surfaces with this road widening. Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct.
And the stormwater, where will I'm assuming that's not being handled on the site. Is that going into the existing stormwater system, or will there be additional treatment for that flow? And maybe you might not be the right one to answer that question.
So I can answer that.
Great.
The improvements at 547 and Randolph, disconnected from our site completely, are going to have their own stormwater infrastructure to handle the additional impervious. We are required to follow all applicable state statutes of 7:8 of the NJDP when treating the stormwater, right? So that'll be handled in itself over there. The stormwater associated with the widening along Randolph Road and along Oak Glen Road, which front along our site, will most likely be handled internally to the site to accomplish that, because we have the ability to bring it on site and treat it and detain it as necessary.
Okay, thank you. So that will include treatment as well as detention. It just won't be detained and then put right into the existing system or right into the Matita Conch. It'll be treated with green infrastructure or impervious permeable pavement or something like that.
So we've reached about the limit of my knowledge of infrastructure. Our site engineer is the one that's handling all that, but I can tell you it is designed in full conformance and review by the DEP and all current regulations associated with it.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next, I have Nelson.
Okay, Nelson, we just need you to state and spell your name and give us your address.
Nelson, you're muted.
I'm sorry. My name is Nelson Santos, 768 Oakland Road.
Okay, Mr. Santos, if you just spell your last name for us?
Santos, Santos.
Okay, go ahead, Mr. Santos.
My question is for about what's the weight of those trailers when they are loaded, the maximum weight?
I don't have that answer at my fingertips. I can tell you they're in the tens of thousands of pounds.
I'm sorry, but as a traffic engineer, you don't know what trailer. Suppose the maximum in New Jersey is 80,000 pounds.
So I don't have the specific weight of the 10 trucks that are going to be coming to and from the site. There is
Well,
the
they
potential
can-
that it's a fully laden truck. Absolutely.
They can't be no more than 80,000 pounds. That's the maximum legal weight in New Jersey. They can be less, but not more. But they can get to 80,000. That's 40 tons.
Okay.
All right, that was just my question. Thank you.
Thank you. I have no one else with their hand currently raised.
Let's just give it a moment or two.
Yeah, I was gonna say, we'll give it.
I do, hold on.
There's no way that's it.
I have Janet Coakley.
Okay, just state and spell your name and give us your address.
I don't know, I'm trying to bring her in, but she's not.
Okay.
I'm going to try the next person. I have Mark Parisi.
Okay, Mr. Parisi, if you could just state and spell your name and give us your address.
Hey, good evening. Mark Parisi. Last name's Parisi, 2 Castle Court.
Okay, go ahead.
Thank you. Good evening, everybody. Council member, board members, professionals. All right, I got a couple things. I have a couple documents that I may want to submit as evidence on behalf of the public. Do you want me to be sworn?
No, this
Well,
is
you
for
don't have-
questions only, Mark.
All right, well, let me just, Mr. Parisi, are the documents related to questions that you're going to ask?
Yes.
Okay, just what are they before we get into it?
It's in an Oprah request that from the county regarding a traffic study.
Well, what document though did you get from the Oprah request?
It's going to be the Oprah request, the response, and then an email correspondence that went back and forth with the county regarding the Oprah request.
And who was the Oprah request made to? So it was just the custodian of records or anyone in particular?
Yeah, it was the custodian of records. It was the Department of Public Works and Engineering.
Okay, so just before we move on, Ms. Goncher, we'll have to take a look at it, but do you have any objections at this point to
I do.
receiving it? Okay, go ahead.
My objection is that this was not submitted in advance to give us an opportunity to review it. Once it's introduced, I think we'll be prejudiced by not knowing what it is. We have always had the courtesy, we submit our documents, even exhibits in advance. Whether those standards still apply, those were implemented for remote hearings. And since this is only questions, I'm not sure why there are documents which are in the nature of evidence rather than questions.
Well, it's a question that's based on the testimony that's going to relate to a document. But I think I understand the objection. Mr. Chairman, what I would recommend is that Mr. Parisi submit the documents and we will distribute to everyone. It may mean, however, we're going to have to bring Mr. Taylor back, but without submitting the documents, I think you could still ask your question, at least preliminarily, Mr. Parisi, and then we can move on from there.
Okay. So my question would be to the traffic experts and I guess Ms. Goncher. are you aware of any other traffic studies that were done at the intersection of 547 and Randolph Road that have not been testified to tonight?
If I may, since you're directing it at me, the only traffic report that my witness is testifying to is the one that he prepared.
Okay.
That's relevant to this application.
So my question to you would be, are you familiar with resource engineering, and does your firm represent resource engineering in a lawsuit currently pending MONL-2495-20?
Mr. Parisi, you're asking that to Ms. Goncher or to
Correct.
Mr. Taylor?
I'm asking Ms. Goncher if her the law firm that she works for also represents another entity on Randolph Road that's currently in litigation under the
Breaking up.
Ms. Goncher, are you familiar with that action?
I've never heard that name, actually. I do know that one of my partners is involved in litigation with regard to other property in Howell. He joined the firm, I think, and the matter came with him. I'm not aware of that name. It's not familiar to me.
Okay, so
I'll take
there's a property that's next to the Monmouth Commerce Center property that is currently, there was a proposal to build a waste transfer station. It's in litigation. The name of the plaintiff is Resource Engineering, and your firm is representing the plaintiff in that litigation. And
is that testimony, or is there a question? You asked me if I was familiar.
Ms. Goncher, let's let Mr. Parisi finish. So Mr. Parisi, Ms. Goncher has given you what her knowledge is.
Okay, I'm going to get to
that litigation.
All right. Okay, so in 2018, the county passed a resolution 2018-0803 on September 27th, 2018, to issue a traffic study for the intersection of Randolph Road and 547.
So let's just hold it right there and just say to the applicant's team, is anybody aware or have knowledge of that resolution?
I'm not intimately familiar with it, no.
No, I'm not aware of it either.
Okay.
Okay.
All right.
So taxpayers of Monmouth County spent $32,000 to provide for this traffic study that presumably was done at some point. I don't know when the traffic study was done, but on August 29th of this year, or last year, 2022, I sent an OPA request to the county asking for that traffic study, because I thought that traffic study would provide data that would be relevant and germane to this particular intersection, since it was paid for by the county in regards to the waste transfer station and traffic impacts at the very intersection that we've been discussing for 2 hours and 40 minutes tonight. And I think that this record is incomplete for both the board, the applicant, and the public if we do not have that traffic study and the data from that traffic study that could possibly impact this board's decision regarding this application.
So let's morph that a little bit into a question for Mr. Taylor. Mr. Taylor, if such a report does exist, what would its relevance be to this application?
At this point, if it's not a project that is moving forward, I don't think it has any relevance to this application. We're required to look at the conditions as they are today and as they are approved today, and we've designed our intersection to accommodate that. That being said, there is additional capacity being built into that traffic signal and those roadway improvements. There's capacity to accommodate additional traffic at that intersection. I don't know what this traffic study that you're talking about, but we don't build things on roadway improvements like this just to accommodate the traffic of our project. It's short-sighted to do that. There's additional capacity built into that intersection. So I think, other development along Randolph Road would be able to utilize the traffic signal being built as part of this project.
Ron, can I just ask a question? You keep referring to the traffic signal being built. Does the county have plans for this traffic signal currently?
Yes,
They do. And what's the time frame associated with it?
they have our plans that are being proposed to be built as part of this project.
Okay, does the county have plans to construct the signal?
The county does not have a capital improvement project to build the signal.
All right, thank you.
So I requested the traffic study on August 29th, 2022. I got a response from the county on October 7th, 2022, after they requested numerous extensions of time, and their response, and I shall read it for you, and I'm willing to provide it to you if you request. It says the County of Monmouth Division of Engineering and Traffic Safety has no documents responsive to your request at this time. The traffic study is a quote draft and therefore is not eligible for release. So I then sent follow-up questions regarding when they anticipated that this document may no longer be a draft and be released to the public. And they said that they basically had no information responsive to that. So what I surmise from that is that the traffic study was paid for, it was done, it's a draft, and for reasons that I'm not aware of, the county won't release it. But based upon the resolution that was passed in September of 2018, it most definitely related to this particular intersection. And I think that this board should do whatever it can for this applicant to get their hands on this traffic study, and that should be incorporated into this application. So that's one thing that I want to address. Did you want to talk about that anymore, or did you want me to move on?
Well, it's questions. So, I mean, that was more of a statement as to what you think the board and the applicant should do. So,
fair enough.
Yeah. So you can move on to your next question.
Okay. Regarding the exhibits that were made publicly available, I just wanted to say that Exhibit B24, the board traffic engineers review, the link to it didn't work. And I emailed with Ms. Rabano this morning, and she provided me a copy of it. So I just wanted it to be known on the record that the public did not have access to Exhibit B24 prior to the hearing today. Because
well, no, that's not a true statement, because you communicated and you got it. You're a member of the public and you had access.
But other members of the public that would have gone to
well,
go use
the public notice provides that it can be accessed online or in the planning department. So anyone who went to the planning department would have had access.
That's correct. My question for the applicant's traffic expert: are you aware that 547 is designated as a scenic road on the Monmouth County Master Plan from 2016?
I'm not aware of that. I am aware that it falls within the New Jersey access route based on truck routing.
Okay. I have the Monmouth County Transportation Mobility Map, Monmouth County Master Plan, September 2016. It designates 547 as a scenic road.
Excuse me.
Mr. Parisi, just before you go on from that, look, if it were a scenic road, Justin, what would that mean?
It's not going to change the type of vehicles that are permitted along the roadway. The scenic routes have design criteria that they prefer, depending on curbing, depending on utility work, depending on things of that nature. It does not change the vehicle type permitted along the roadway.
My next question to Mr. Taylor would be, how do you formulate your projections without knowing who the tenants are going to be for this project?
We follow the methodology prescribed by the Institute of Transportation Engineers and utilized by traffic professionals, utilizing the data within the trip generation manual.
And that's assuming that every tenant is going to operate within the same manner? Distributing or warehousing the same types of goods or products?
No, not at all. It takes into account that there are fluctuations within different tenants. And within a warehouse development, you're going to have some more and some less intensive. But it is recommended when the tenancy is unknown, the specific tenancy is unknown, that you apply the most applicable land use code within the trip generation manual, which we have done with land use code 150.
Okay, thank you. How many total trucks daily do you project are going to be coming and going from this project?
Wasn't that, excuse me, wasn't that answered?
Yeah, it was asked and answered a few times.
Was that the approximately 432 number, Chairman, that you came up with?
Actually, I think the number is a little higher.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
It was 238 in, 238 out, I believe.
So 476 roughly. Okay. Question.
I was gonna say, let me set it straight. The answer is 282 for a total of 554 trips.
That's
Is that
total
for the whole
vehicles or
day?
tractor trailers?
That's
Sorry.
per day.
I'm sorry, is that for the whole day or is that just your peak hour? That's not your
That's
peak hour, right, Justin? That's the whole day?
That's the whole day, correct. That's in a 24-hour period. We would anticipate 282 in and 282 out.
Can somebody tell me what are the block and lots regarding the properties that need to be that are part of the acquisition of right of way?
Yep. You ready?
Go ahead.
Block 5, lot 4. Block 5, lot 5.
Mhm.
Block 5, lot 6. Block 27, lot 1.01. Block 27, lot 1.02. And block 38, lot 5.
Thank you. And which one is the township owned property?
Block 5, lot 5.
My next question is regarding engine braking. There hasn't been any testimony regarding that. Is there anything that's going to be done to prevent all of these tractor trailers from engine braking at any point along 547 that may disturb the peace of people that live along 547? And anything?
There's not anything currently proposed along 547 to that effect.
Okay. And I guess my last thing would be, it's been testified to tonight already that the township has since rezoned this property and eliminated warehousing as a permitted use on this property. Why would the town agree to give up the acquisition of right of way for a warehouse project when they no longer believe that warehouses should be built here?
I'm going to object to that. I don't think that's a traffic consultant question.
Well, that asks more about what the governing body believes rather than anything that the traffic engineer testified to. But the board takes note.
And will the public be given the opportunity to ask additional questions when they come back with Mr. Taylor? Because it sounds like there's some additional documents that may have been submitted that were not made available to the board and the public.
Any additional testimony would obviously be open to cross-examination, but only on the additional testimony, not a rehash of what was testified to tonight.
Okay. That pretty much covered everything. Now, with regarding the Oprah request in the resolution, I would like to submit that to you all so that you guys have that as part of your record. Would you like me to email it to you, Mr. Cucciaro?
No. Email you. Well, you can CC me if you want, but email it directly to Eileen so that it's part of our official record and she can distribute it to the board members and to Ms. Goncher.
Okay.
And I
I'll do
understand, that's over our objection, as we don't believe it's relevant to the application that's pending, but the board will make
Well,
its
we'll-
decision as long as our objection is noted.
It is noted.
Thank you.
Oh, I saw one last question. I saw that in the traffic impact report, there was discussion about the 2018 traffic study that included data from the McDonough and Ray traffic engineering firm. That's included in this traffic study. Wasn't there an issue last time about how Mr. Taylor was relying on data that was obtained by another firm and that he could not testify to how that data was obtained? And now
that was an element of the board's prior resolution, yes.
Okay, and that again is now being woven back into the current traffic study. Am I correct? Did I read that correctly?
So we conducted all of our own traffic data counts for the intersections that we studied for the analysis.
So I guess the answer to that is no, then. You did not rely on McDonough and Ray. You went out and performed your own traffic counts?
That's correct.
Okay.
All right, thank you, folks. My dog wants to go outside. I'll let you go. Bye.
Thank you.
Well, we understand priorities, okay.
Hold on one sec. I have Janet Coakley.
Okay, is she on now?
Not yet. Give her a minute. Now she may be coming in. Janet, you're muted.
Okay, Ms. Coakley, if you could just state and spell your name and give us your address.
Just trying to get on him.
We got you. We can hear you.
Some friendly elderly instructions would be appreciated in the future.
I'm with you. I'm with you.
Janet Coakley, 3039 Lakewood Allenwood Road. And my question is regarding the signage for entry to the facility to prevent trucks from all piling up at the first entrance instead of moving on to the second entrance. I can see that it could become a major obstruction by not having the traffic move on. And my dog wants to go out too.
Then I'll try and answer quickly for you. Each one of these buildings and each one of the tenants is going to be assigned, building A, building B. And the signage of the driveways are anticipated to orient the drivers, one from trucking and employees, to move on to the next driveways, but also to educate the truck driver that if you want to go to building B or you want to go to building D, you should be utilizing, use the next driveway or an arrow directing you in that direction so that it spreads that trucking out. We don't want them all using the first driveway, but I think it's an educational process when you know which building you're going to.
So there will be signage designating which building to enter? Where to enter for each building?
There will be signage directing traffic to the various buildings. That's correct.
But I mean along the roadway, along Randolph Road, is there to be signage there?
Yes, at the entrance, there is proposed signage to direct the traffic.
All right, and what is to prevent the trucks from just all deciding they're going to use the first entrance, so therefore they block traffic to allow the exit of the other vehicles?
Well, we've designed the driveways to allow simultaneous entering and exiting. So any vehicle entering is not going to block a vehicle from exiting the site.
No, that's not what I'm saying. I'm saying I can anticipate that the trucks exiting the facility having to go left will have to cross a lane of traffic.
They will.
It'd be advantageous to the truckers if they all block the first entrance, line up there to enter and allow those trucks to exit, thereby taking over the street in its entirety.
So the right turn maneuver at an unsignalized intersection is a free flow maneuver, right? There is no conflict. So the vehicles are able to enter without any delay and circulate into the site. However, with the signage and the trucks oriented to where they want to go, there'll be utilization of both of the driveways. But as you make a right turn in, it doesn't, there's no delay associated with it because there's nothing blocking. It's a free flow maneuver.
I'll offer testimony when that's appropriate. Thank you.
Okay, do we have anybody else, Eileen?
Yes, I have Laura B.
Okay, if you could just state and spell your name and give us your address.
Hi,
ahead,
hello, can you
Laura.
hear me?
Yes,
Yes.
yes, we can.
Hi, Laura Berg, BERG, 41 Crater Lake Road, Howell.
Okay.
I have two questions for Mr. Taylor. I know the traffic studies that you said you did were more of the early time and the end time when traffic is going on. Did you do the traffic studies between hours 3 and 4:30? I know that warehouse employees are typically they work shift work, which is between 7 to 3, 3 to 11, 11 to 7. And you're saying there's 400 plus spaces that are allowed for employees. I heard testimony about how many tractor trailers will be entering and exiting, but did you take into the account the time between 3 and 4:30 when many shift workers would be getting out of that building?
So we analyzed it during the peak commuting hour, again, because you end up with the greatest conflict of vehicles during those times. The average commuting, I will absolutely agree with you. If this is shift work and it's 3 shifts, there's the potential to be 7 to 3, 3 to 11, 11 to 7. You may not get all shift work like that. You may get 2 shifts, you may get single shifts, depending on the tenants that we have. All that being said, the volume, the general prevailing volume and the commuting hours during 4:30 to 6:30 is a higher background volume. What you're going to find is even if there's traffic coming out of the facility at say 3 o'clock, the background volume on the roadway is going to be lower. And so the impact, the greatest impact that we see when we analyze this is during that peak commuting hour, which is why as an industry, we look at 4:30 to 6:30.
Okay. But for somebody that drives the road, the 3 to 4:30, is actually a very trafficy time. But I just wanted to verify the times. And my next question is, say the 547 to Randolph Road entrance is closed, whether it's snow or a light out or a traffic accident, is there an alternate route that these trucks would be sent to get to the warehouse?
So you're asking if the traffic signal is out, is there another route?
Well, for whatever reason, whether it's a car accident happened in that exact spot, like rush hour traffic accidents do happen there, and we're rerouted because it happens. It does happen. Is there another way for these trucks? Like, how would they get
So if
to
there
the
was
facility? If, like I said, during a rainstorm, during a car accident, and that whole section having access.
So you were breaking up a little bit, but I think the general gist is if there's some sort of emergency, so the roadway can't operate the way it's designed, what happens to the traffic coming to the site? Is that the general
Correct.
gist? So under those circumstances, knowing that it's an emergency, The police force would be most likely setting up detours to accommodate not only our traffic, but the traffic along the roadway that needs to be done. And those detours would be set up with the knowledge of the vehicles that need to traverse the roadways, and done in accordance with the Howell Police Department.
Okay, thank you. And one other question, the employees that would be exiting and entering the facility, I know you said that the trucks can only enter and exit a certain direction. Would employees be allowed to exit and exit whichever direction they want, or is it also just one direction?
So it's a great question. The center driveway designed for the employees is a full movement driveway. We anticipate the employees going the shortest, quickest route to and from work and to and from where they live. So we do anticipate them being able to make a left or a right out of the site onto Randolph, and then travel either to 547 in the same route the trucks do, or over to Oak Glen and Brook and Lakewood Allenwood in that direction.
Thank you so much. Those are my questions.
Welcome.
Next, I have Lawrence White.
Okay, please state and spell your name and give us your address.
Good evening. My name is Lawrence White, LAWRENCE, WHITE, 15 Wren Way. In your testimony this evening, Mr. Taylor, I heard you talking about consultation with the county about improvement of one of the intersections near to the warehouse. I want to confirm that you're talking about the intersection where Oak Glen Road passes 547?
No. The improvements we're talking about are at the intersection of Randolph Road and 547.
Okay, and nothing else?
We
Nothing
made
else.
minor signal timing modifications at some other off-site intersections, yes.
Okay, thank you. I travel this route regularly. It's the way that I usually come home. And I got to tell you that coming off 195
Well,
down to
this is just for questions. There's going to be
Okay,
an
it's
opportunity to
questions.
testify at the end.
understand, and actually, you all of you live in Howell. You know what I'm going to say next. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Next, I have Candace Dovenero.
Okay, if you could state and spell your name and give us your address.
She's, oh, there we go.
Candace Dovenero, 58 Victory Road, Howell, New Jersey, 07731.
Okay, go ahead and ask your questions.
So I understand that there are no tenants yet for this building.
Correct. Yes.
Great. Okay, and trucks we have, I mean, they're going to be using 547, correct?
That's correct.
Which they are attached to Route 18, which is off of 195. There is a weight limit of 10,000 pounds again, which seems to be continuously ignored. A 53-foot tractor trailer, that's 10,000 pounds. A loaded tractor trailer is at least, and that we're talking 65 to 73 feet, is at least 80,000 pounds. So we're going over the poundage significantly. Like, I'm a Spanish teacher. I don't do like math, but that's significant. That's something that Mr. Turner needs to take into account, because our roadways do have maximum weight limits, and they are 10,000 pounds.
So
These roads.
I don't know if there's a question in there, but
Okay, no, it's more of a statement. It may be a question that you can revisit. These tractor trailers are coming from Route 18, which would come down 195, down 547. Okay, the other way they can enter to Randolph Road would be maybe Route 9. Where are they coming from?
So the interstate trucking network, Rate 195 is part of the interstate trucking network, provides access
Correct.
to the turnpike.
Which
provides
does not
access
have
to
a weight limit.
provides access to Route 1, provides access to 295, right?
Correct.
Provides access to multiple other roadways within the interstate roadway network.
Agreed. But don't have a weight limit of 10,000 pounds. Or tons, sorry. I think it's tons. Yeah.
So I don't believe that there's an issue with the truck route that is proposed for the facility, right?
I'm not really interested in the truck route. I'm interested in the infrastructure on our roadways that are leading to the warehouse that you're proposing.
I
That's where
understand
they're
that.
coming from. So there's no weight limit in or out until they come into Howell. And then we need to worry about then you're talking county roads, but then we have township roads that they're going to be traveled on as well. And that's something that needs to be revisited.
Mr. Cuchero.
So are you asking whether he's going to revisit that issue?
I would prefer that he does, because we're
No.
taking.
Are you asking that question? Because this is questions, not testimony.
Mr. Hucharo, here's my main issue. The traffic study was done during COVID. Okay. None of us, I mean, as an essential worker, I did not drive during COVID, nor did many of my other people that I know. So they're using an algorithm that is not valid. It's not.
So,
essential.
but I think we can.
Objection.
I think there's a question. The question is whether there should have been what?
She's going to object no matter what. But during COVID,
Well,
no one drove. We all drove. Like,
Mr. Chairman, I'm trying
Yes,
to
I know,
help, but
I know.
it's
I
not
understand.
being successful. So if there's no questions, we need
That's
to move
fine.
on.
Move on.
Okay, thank you. Is there anybody else, Eileen?
I have no one right now. Now I have Steve Morlino.
Okay, Mr. Morlino, if you could state and spell your name and give us your address.
Okay, good evening. There's a delay here between me getting on and whatever, but that being the point, I have a few questions. So I'm curious if your traffic study took into consideration how many trucks travel up and down Oak Glen Road in the opposite direction of 547 towards 195 and turn onto Aldridge Road and go up Windler Road or Aldridge Road to Route 9.
So we took into account the trucks traveling out of our site to County Route 547 and then oriented towards 195. As an off-site intersection, we took a look at a couple of the other signals through that corridor, because that's the methodology we had done with the prior application for this project. We studied the intersections that I testified to earlier in the hearing.
So on Oak Glen Road, on any average day, my development that I live in is directly off of Oak Glen Road. On any average day, just me pulling in and out of the development, there are numerous tractor trailers coming up Oak Glen Road towards 195, and they make a left onto Aldridge Road. They're traveling on local roads. Most of them are coming from Fast Forward, which is a trucking warehouse that was built some 25 or 28 years ago. And the agreement at that time was, and here's my question, the agreement was that they would only go down to 547 and enter and exit the site off of 547. That hasn't been enforced in almost 30 years. So I'm curious, how do you believe, or will there be any enforcement of these vehicles other than your stating that the ingress and egress is in one direction, which I really doubt, and that's another question I have, is how do you control people? It was talked about trucks turning left and going over the curb. I can just see that happening because I see many truck drivers that are very confused when they come into a community like Howell and they've never been here before and they travel all over. So how will we control this? How do you anticipate controlling that?
Okay, let me
That's
start
my
with the last question and work my way backward.
Okay.
As I mentioned, we are absolutely on board, should the board want it, with granting Title 39. What that means is it gives the police department of Howell Township permission to enforce the turning maneuvers at the driveways. So anyone not following the signs and the signage and the law can be ticketed. Two, we've designed the driveways to channelize them and point them in the correct direction towards 547. I don't know if you had a chance to review the plan, but it's not a typical T intersection that you come up to. It's a channelized right, which makes it impossible for tractor trailers to make that right-hand turn. They're only going to be able to make the left. With regards to enforcement and what's going on along another roadway, I can't really speak to that. I don't know what's going on there. That's way outside of what we would look at as part of this planning board application.
Okay, well, I think the board needs to look at it. That's a question I have. Is the board going to look at that? Because again, all of this traffic combined impacts this whole project. So is the board going to look at that? That's a question for the board.
Well, the board is going to evaluate all testimony and give it its proper weight. So it takes your questions and the comments that are going to be given and determines, how it's going to reach its conclusion. But it's going to evaluate all the testimony. That's how it's going to consider.
Terrific. You brought up weight, and that's another concern I have. Another question I have is why we didn't look at the weight limits on these roads. I think it's critical, and I hope we take a second look at that. So, Mr. Taylor, will you be looking at the weight limit in all the area roads leading up to this warehouse site?
So my understanding of the truck route that we have is that there is not a restriction through there, and the county has no issue with the 500 route connection between our site and 195.
So the simple answer is you're satisfied with what you've done. You will not be looking into it.
That's correct.
Okay, well, again, I hope the board looks into it because some people in the county government need a GPS to find Howell. That being said, is there anything in your traffic study that looked at the NOx emissions from all of these trucks in the township and what the impact is going to be climatically on the environment, especially in consideration that we have numerous recreation areas in this vicinity and all these trucks are going to be running up and down the road there, adding to the level of NOx emissions in the atmosphere? Has that been taken into consideration? And what's the carbon footprint of this facility?
So that is outside my level, my realm of expertise. I'm not an environmental scientist.
Okay, I would ask the board that they look into that. That's a question I have. What is the carbon footprint impact? I know that's probably for another testimony we'll talk about. But I'm concerned about the emissions and what the impact is going to be. The other question I had is I heard discussion about the township-owned property, some 4,000 square feet that is needed to do this project. If the town should decide, and we have a council member on board here, if they should decide that it's not in the best interest of the town to relinquish that piece of property, what's the position of this project? Can it go forward from the traffic standpoint?
So should the properties not be able to be acquired that are necessary for the design that we have, we can take another look and redesign that intersection to most likely avoid those type of impacts.
Well, I think, Mr. Taylor, I had asked you that same question. At this moment in time, this is the only plan that's before the board. And this is the only
All right,
plan
I
that's
agree
before.
with you, but in answering his question, what happens? Well, then we look at another solution, right? I can tell you there's another engineering solution to avoid those properties. It's not the optimal alignment for the roadway, but there is a way to design it within conformance to standards to most
Okay,
likely
but-
eliminate the need for that.
But under the current proposal that we're reviewing right now, could it go forward without that property?
Let me jump in and just answer the question, which is that intersection design is not within the jurisdiction of this board. That is within the jurisdiction of the county planning board. So this board, under the state law, grants approvals subject to outside agency approvals. It's the norm and it's authorized by statute. There are other approvals also outside the jurisdiction, which may have conditions on them from Department of Environmental Protection, from other, agencies beyond. So I'm going to suggest that my witness is not going to, he's answered the question that he believes there are other alternatives. And if the condition of an approval from the county is that we redesign the intersection and construct the traffic signal, that's the condition. I don't believe that, in my view, that this board has a say in what the design of the intersection is. That's the jurisdiction of the county.
That's
And
very nice.
I just want to be
for that,
clear
But
that
I'm
the board,
asking the traffic engineer if this project can go forward as designed without that piece of property. That's my question.
And I think he answered it.
Now let him answer the question, please.
well, hold on.
Hang on.
First of all, the question was asked, they're declining to, or they feel they have answered. That's the sum and substance of it. However, what I can say is that this board has never taken the position that it is approving the design. What I had asked Mr. Taylor earlier was, if that acquisition does not happen, does that impact the report he's given the board? And the answer was yes.
Okay,
So, yeah.
So I have a question.
Justin, was that your answer?
I don't think that's true at all. I think the operation of the intersection, right, within the report would be the same. We would need to redesign how the roadway aligned, but the operation of that signal, it's my opinion, could be accomplished without the piece of property.
But you
I
can't.
asked you earlier whether those improvements were related to your report and whether your report was based upon those improvements. The record is the record. I understand,
So-
your position now, but I think we're
Mr.
going to need
Kuchar-
to go back and take a look.
Let me then clarify if I was unclear as I answered the question. The geometry of the intersection, regardless of where it falls within space, is what we needed to accomplish the capacity, right? We want a left turn lane into Randolph Road. We want separate turn lanes on Randolph Road. Whether the roadway alignment is shifted to the west to avoid acquisition of the property that's in question, that can be accomplished. And the conclusions of my report are based upon the capacity analysis of the intersection, regardless of spatially where it falls along Randolph Road. So if I misunderstood your question, I apologize.
I don't think you misunderstood the question, and I don't think that was the question. I don't think his question had anything to do with the geometry. It was all of these improvements. I don't care where in the right of way you're talking about, but the turn lanes, the signal, all of these improvements. So your conclusions in your report are contingent upon the improvements. Where they happen, I don't think was the question. And your answer 100% was yes. So
yes, Jenny. We're saying the same thing.
Right. So I think, no, I don't, I think that.
I don't think we are, but the record's the record. I understand your position. Mr. Morlino, do you have any other questions?
Yes, my last question is the center driveway, which is an open driveway, as you referred to it, either right or left ingress and egress. What is the possibility of a tractor trailer coming down Oak Glen Road and making a left into that center driveway? What's going to preclude that from happening?
So the design of the driveway is for passenger vehicles. The design of the signage that will be at that driveway is to prohibit trucks from coming in that driveway. It's designed to accommodate passenger vehicles, and it will be signed for no trucks.
So is it possible if the truck driver made the wrong turn and he doesn't want to go loop around 547 somewhere, turn around and come back, could he possibly make that left turn?
So we will sign it, and it will be enforceable of no trucks utilizing the driveway.
Okay, again, I guess my question is, it can be done. My statement is it can be done, and a sign doesn't enforce anything. You indicated there'd be no security booths, nobody monitoring traffic at the ingress and egress areas at this site. Is that correct?
Yes, there are no security booths proposed for the project.
Okay. All right, you answered my questions. Thank you very much. Everyone have a good evening.
Have a good evening. Hang on one second, Eileen. So normally, we had planned on ending this meeting at 10 o'clock. It's now 10:24. How many people do we have up, Eileen, that still want to ask questions?
5.
I mean,
Look, we appreciate the effort that our traffic consultant would not have to be rescheduled. It looks like, in spite of your best efforts, Mr. Chairman, which we appreciate, we understand, and we appreciate your going beyond. Now, it's up to, obviously, the board can continue. There were residents here. I'm just saying, I think there was a clear attempt to honor the request that we not have to bring back this witness, and we appreciate your best efforts to do so.
yeah, no, yeah.
My question is,
I know a
when
couple of
to?
us, a couple of us have some work we got to do early in the morning. So I'm thinking 10:30 would be the hard stop. I mean, we might be able to fit one more person in, depending on, to get the question in. I mean, what do you think about that, Mr. Cachero?
I think it's going to take us till 10:30 to find the next date to carry this to.
I was just going to say.
Okay.
I apologize, but yes.
I was making an effort.
Well,
So-
I have
Mhm.
a warehouse application on February 2nd. I have a warehouse application February 16th. I have a warehouse application March 2nd. Right now, I have nothing on March 16th.
I'm
I
going
also-
to ask it at the risk of somebody. I'm glad I'm not in the room. Let me put it that way. Is there any possibility of another special meeting? I don't know that anybody thinks the 2 warehouse hearings can be accommodated on a single evening, unless there is something about one of those that would not likely take a substantial part of the evening.
Well, I would certainly never jinx us and say that. But
I am not available on March 16th either.
well, maybe
Who was
can I
that?
put
Oh, Justin.
that was
That's
that
me,
was Mr. Taylor.
unfortunately.
Could we maybe do this? Can we carry it for scheduling purposes only to Thursday, which is our regular meeting of February 1st, or February 2nd? Just for scheduling only in between now and then, board members and everyone can confer, and then we'll publicly announce when the next date is on Thursday.
Yeah, I'm going to ask, forgive me for carrying on, Adam, if he's on the line, if he's going to be available Thursday.
Yes, I'm available on Thursday.
Thank you. I have another commitment. That's why I don't want to speak for anybody. That would be terrific if you can carry it to then, and we'll work out, see if there's any possibility.
All right, so what I'll do, Mr. Chairman, the application of Monmouth Commerce Center LLC, case number SP-1100, be carried to the board's February 2nd regular meeting, 2023, 7 o'clock. It is a remote meeting. The instructions on how to access the meeting are on the township's website. Again, this is for scheduling purposes only. The purpose of considering it will be to make a public announcement of when this application will be carried to continue the substantive testimony. So for scheduling purposes only, with no further notice to property owners, be carried to February 2nd, 2023, 7 o'clock, remote meeting. The documents that Mr. Parisi had, I saw he emailed us already, so those will be at least marked for identification and made available, and we'll make a formal determination on it at the next substantive hearing.
Thank you for that. And thank you to the board for their patience and consideration.
You're welcome.
Thanks,
Okay,
everyone.
that would be it, Mr. Chair.
Okay, I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
Before you do, just look for your emails tomorrow, because I'll be sending some special emails out to all the board members, okay?
Okay.
Okay,
Thank you.
so again, motion to adjourn.
I'll make a
make a
motion to adjourn.
Thank
All
you.
in favor?
Aye.
All right, good night. See you guys Thursday.
Thank you, everybody.
Good night.
Thank you.
Good night, everyone.
Good night.